Chapter 283. As soon as this person spoke, it made one's hair stand on end. His sharp voice, plus his body and appearance, made him look like a ferocious ghost. However, as soon as he initiated his temperament, Zhuobuchuan did not dare to look down on him. He protected Qin Wushuang and Wei Yi behind him and said in a low voice, "Head Bai, who is your disciple? Why are you asking the Stargaze Palace for the murderer?" This person was the second head of the Archaic Mysteries sect. He was the most vicious and vicious person in the Heavenly Lake Empire. His name was Bai Gujing. It was rumored that he had practiced some kind of evil technique that could make Bai Gujing retreat. Thus, he was named Bai Gujing. "Stop with the nonsense, Zhuobuchuan. I will only ask you one question. Are you going to hand it over or not?" This Bai Gujing spoke with an extremely arrogant and tyrannical tone. Only, in Zhuobuchuan's eyes, his tyrannical tone was only a pretense. Zhuobuchuan glanced at these upper sky warriors surrounding the pine crane and lightly and shook his head helplessly. "Head Bai, you have set up such a big formation, are you trying to show off? Or are you trying to provoke us? Only, don't you think that it's unnecessary to bring such a group of people to talk to me? Zhuobuchuan's wisdom lay here. If you used force with an aggressive attitude, he would use a soft approach. He would make you unable to use your strength." Bai Gujing said eerily, "Zhuobuchuan, let me ask you again. Are you going to hand over the murderer of my disciple? If you don't hand it over, I am afraid the moon will not be full today. First of all, you have many disciples under you. Who exactly was killed? Secondly, the Stargaze Palace has just arrived. How could we go to your Archaic Mysteries sect to kill someone? Thirdly, since the Archaic Mysteries sect is acting so aggressively, could it be that you think it's fun to be the local bully?" Zhuobuchuan's words were clear and watertight. He left Bai Gujing with nowhere to vent his anger and could not find an opening. Bai Gujing waved his hand. "Shi Fei Lan, come here." That core disciple wearing a headband, Shi Fei Lan walked over. "Second uncle, I am here. Okay, tell me, that day at the 100 Battles Mountain, who challenged the arena, who fought with your junior brother Devil Boy?" That Shi Fei Lan answered truthfully. "At first, there was a person called Chuan Yo or something. He was a small fish, so he was sent away. Then, an exceptional Zhao Muji from the Stargaze Palace came. That person was no match for Junior Devil Boy. Just as he was about to be killed, someone ambushed Junior Devil Boy and lured him away. After that, no one knows where he went." Bai Gujing widened his pair of green eyes and said with a sharp voice, "Zhuobuchuan, did you hear that? That person must be from the Stargaze Palace. Or else, why would he save that Zhao Muji?" Zhuobuchuan could not help but laugh. "Head Bai, if you were to become an official at the government office, I don't know how many unjust, false, and wrong cases would occur. You are relying on this baseless speculation to insist that I am a disciple of the Stargaze Palace. It's somewhat strange. Moreover, Zhao Muji set off alone without any companions. How can he be considered an accomplice?" Bai Gujing said angrily. "If the Stargaze Palace did not intend to play tricks, why would you divide your troops? For sure, the Stargaze Palace is involved in this matter. Head Bai, could it be that the Stargaze Palace can predict the future and predict that the Archaic Mysteries sect would set up an arena at the 100 Battles Mountain? Thus, you sent out elite warriors to challenge the arena? You are overestimating the Stargaze Palace with your words. The Stargaze Palace does not know how to predict the future." Although Bai Gujing was vicious and cunning, he could not accept the fact that he had lost his beloved disciple. Due to his emotional state, he was rendered speechless by Zhuobuchuan's words. Initially, he had come here to cause trouble without any evidence. He only relied on his speculation to scare the people of the Stargaze Palace. However, Zhuobuchuan had given him the cold shoulder. However, after all, Bai Gujing was a cunning person. On one hand, he had come here to investigate the real culprit to scare the Stargaze Palace. On the other hand, how could he not want to demonstrate his power? Head Palace Master Zhua, since you are denying it, would you dare to call out all your disciples and let me recognize them? Bai Gujing asked lightly. However, Zhuo Buchuan said, the Stargaze Palace is on par with the Archaic Mysteries sect. We have come to the territory of the Heavenly Lake Empire as guests and not criminals. Head Bai, since you have mobilized so many people, why should I let you recognize them? Regardless of emotion or reason, it's impossible. Bai Gujing said angrily. If you don't let me recognize them, then it means you have a guilty conscience. Head Bai, you usually do not accumulate virtue and speak without virtue. Are you not afraid of retribution? Zhuo Buchuan lowered his tone and changed his gentle temperament. He understood that this Bai Gujing was pressuring him step by step to test his reaction. If he was easy to talk to, for sure, this Bai Gujing would push his luck. To put it bluntly, even if the Stargaze Palace was a guest, they would not fear the Archaic Mysteries sect. Historically, the friendly competition of the three Eastern empires had an unspoken rule. To prevent the host from bullying others, the other two powerhouses would form a temporary alliance in secret. Thus, if the Archaic Mysteries sect wanted to use their geographical advantage to act recklessly, the Dragon and Tiger sect from the Vermilion Empire would not sit by and watch. Bai Gujing laughed coldly. Retribution? I have been a tyrant for almost 200 years, and I don't know what retribution is. Head Palace Master Zhua, don't think that today's matter is over. Sooner or later, I will take it all back with interest. After looking at Zhuo Buchuan coldly for a moment, Bai Gujing waved his hand and left with a large group of people. This Bai Gujing had come in a menacing manner, but he was forced to leave after being snubbed. Naturally, he was furious. It was not because he did not want to use force, but because he knew that when facing Zhuo Buchuan, despite his powerful evil techniques, he would most likely be inferior. And even if they were to start a war with the Heavenly Lake Empire, now was not the time. If the Great Luo and the Vermilion Empire joined hands, it would not be easy to deal with them even if they had the home advantage. Thus, Bai Gujing decided to retreat for now. Inwardly, he swore, Zhuo Buchuan, let's see how long you can be proud of the Stargaze Palace. In one day, I will make you regret it. After returning to the Archaic Mysteries sect, Bai Gujing walked directly to the Head Palace Master. The Head Palace Master of the Archaic Mysteries sect was called Gao Yu. He was an ambitious and ruthless figure with great foresight. Compared to Bai Gujing, he had a completely different temperament. Boss Gao, I am sure that the death of Devil Boy is related to the Stargaze Palace. Bai Gujing shouted with a cold voice. His face was ferocious and his tone was full of anger. What? Did you find any clues when you went to investigate? A trace of ruthlessness flashed across Gao Yu's eyes. The death of Devil Boy not only made Bai Gujing depressed, it was also a huge blow to him, the Head Palace Master. It could be said that the entire Archaic Mysteries sect had received a fatal impact. Especially in the friendly competition of the three Eastern empires, Devil Boy was supposed to win by surprise as a surprise force. Now, Devil Boy had disappeared mysteriously and had lost his life. That Zhuo Buchuan is extremely cunning and watertight. From his expression and answers, I could not see anything suspicious. However, the more he acts like this, the more suspicious I feel. Bai Gujing said angrily. Second, Gao Yu gave a long sigh. Now, the death of Devil Boy has caused a huge setback to our plan. Regardless of who the murderer is, we will have to think about the next step. Now we have to think about how we should deal with this friendly competition. Bai Gujing said bitterly. Too bad for my short-lived disciple. If he had not died, how could there be any suspense in this friendly competition? Boss Gao, do you think Devil Boy was killed by one of the palace masters and sect masters in disguise? From the investigation at the scene, it's not impossible. However, think about it, Devil Boy was a surprise move. No one had predicted this arena. How could those old guys have known beforehand? How could they have disguised themselves and waited for Devil Boy to make a move? No matter how he analyzed, there were flaws and he could not find a perfect solution. Bai Gujing was extremely anxious, yet he could not do anything. He changed the topic and said, "Since Devil Boy is dead, I am truly disheartened. Boss Gao, this time, the Three Kingdoms friendly competition will depend on how your sect master's disciples perform. If your prized disciple can perform exceedingly well, it's not impossible for him to win the competition. No, the Dragon and Tiger sect has always been mysterious and have many geniuses. And the Stargaze Palace also has Wei Yi, who has the natural spiritual root. We cannot underestimate him. If the Dragon and Tiger sect only has one core disciple at the middle stage, then with the balance between the three empires, the Archaic Mysteries sect will have a great chance of winning. I am afraid that the Dragon and Tiger sect still has trump cards." However, Bai Gujing said, "How could they have so many trump cards? In the three Eastern empires we all know each other very well. It's impossible that they could also find a trump card when we have Devil Boy, who only appears once in 100 years, right? Things are unpredictable, we must always prepare for the worst." Gao Yu was extremely steady. Bai Gujing grabbed his sparse hair and looked like he was going crazy. "Devil Boy, I've let you down. If I didn't let you go to that arena, we would not be in this predicament today." Gao Yu gave a long sigh. Second, in the past few years, the Archaic Mysteries sect has not been doing well. At the Green Jade Mountain, we lost 5 elders. Now, Devil Boy has met with misfortune. If we don't change this situation, I am afraid it will affect the foundation of the Heavenly Lake Empire. Change? Bai Gujing was stunned. How? This time, the 9 Palace of the Red Dragon Empire has come to visit. It's a good opportunity. If we can build a connection with the 9 Palace, the Archaic Mysteries sect and the Heavenly Lake Empire will be able to rule over the 3 Eastern empires. Gao Yu said with a cold tone, "I talked with that law enforcer from the 9 Palace. I also sent 3rd and 4th to help them capture the fugitive. This is a good karma. Next, if we can combine the death of Devil Boy with the fugitive that the 9 Palace is pursuing, it will be a big pot of dirty water. It can form a basin of dirty water and splash it on the Stargaze Palace or the Dragon and Tiger sect." Bai Gujing laughed evilly as a pair of strange lights emerged from his green eyes. He kept nodding. "Good Boss Gao, this is a good move. Don't drag the Dragon and Tiger sect into it, just the Stargaze Palace. Most likely, that fugitive had escaped to the Great Luo Empire. And Devil Boy also participated in the pursuit of that fugitive. However, he was killed by an unknown powerhouse. And most likely, this unknown powerhouse was the fugitive's reinforcements." When he said here, Bai Gujing and Gao Yu exchanged a glance and revealed traces of viciousness. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. More chapters, support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 284. The summer in the Heavenly Lake Empire was not very hot. After nightfall, Qin Wushuang walked on the pine and cypress path in the backyard of the Pine and Crane Inn. This Pine and Crane Inn was quiet amidst the hustle and bustle. The backyard was quiet and secluded, far away from the hustle and bustle of the mortal world. Qin Wushuang liked this feeling. Qin Wushuang raised his head to look at the sky. The starry sky was bright and full of stars. It was vast and deep. Each star seemed to contain countless secrets that one could not figure out. Qin Wushuang's heart was as calm as still water as he strolled on this little path. Suddenly, he heard light footsteps behind him. When he looked back, he saw a figure dressed in white. Under the starry sky, he appeared graceful and elegant. Junior brother Qin. When that person saw Qin Wushuang, he also smiled and walked over. "Senior brother Wei, are you also taking a walk here?" "Yes, in 4 or 5 days, the friendly competition will begin. Wei Yi sighed with emotion. Yes, the elite warriors of the young generation from the 3 Eastern empires will gather together. Whether it's a mule or a horse, we must take them out for a walk. Qin Wushuang followed and said. Wei Yi raised his head to look at the vast starry sky and said with a serious tone, Junior brother Qin, you have only entered the sect for a year. Most likely, you don't know much about many things. Do you know why the 3 empires place such importance on this friendly competition? I don't know about this, please enlighten me. Wei Yi sighed, speaking of which, it's really hard to explain in a few words. To the east of the 3 Eastern empires is the endless Eastern Sea. This endless Eastern Sea is one of the most mysterious areas in the entire Tianxian land. It is boundless and at least 1,000 times wider than our human countries. To the human countries, that endless Eastern Sea is a forbidden area. It is a place that no one can touch. Because of this, the human countries are full of curiosity about this forbidden area. It is rumored that this endless Eastern Sea is full of fortuitous opportunities and different miraculous things. In the past, the 3 Eastern empires would occasionally send adventurers to challenge the endless Eastern Sea. However, in the end, only a few survived. Thus, in the end, the 3 Eastern empires reached an agreement to seal off the endless Eastern Sea. Regardless of which country, no adventurers are allowed to enter the endless Eastern Sea. Qin Wushuang listened patiently. When he had just entered the sect, he had heard his master, Tan Zhongqi, talk about a few places. He said that the human countries should not be easily offended. One of the names was this endless Eastern Sea. So there was such a story. Senior brother Wei, what is the relationship between that endless Eastern Sea and the friendly competition? Wei Yi nodded and continued to speak. After the 3 Eastern empires reached an agreement, it was peaceful for a few dozen years. However, later on, he felt somewhat unwilling to leave such a giant treasure house like the endless Eastern Sea unexplored. Thus, the 3 countries agreed to hold an exchange competition once every 20 years. According to the ranking of the competition, they would explore the endless Eastern Sea once every 20 years. As for the quota, it would decrease according to the ranking. The champion can have 10 people, the runner-up can only have 6 people, and the last place can only have 4 people. Explore the endless Eastern Sea? Qin Wushuang could not help but feel somewhat suspicious. Since that place is listed as a forbidden area, why would we explore it? For such exploration, of course, we would stop at a superficial level. At most, we could only go 3,000 miles and not go any further. Although the sea within the 3,000 miles is dangerous, there is still a limit. Once we go out of the 3,000 miles, it would be dangerous at every step. The waves are emptier than the sky and the water flow is as rapid as boiling water. Whirlpools, waves, and tsunamis could come at any time. Wei Yi gave a long sigh. For these things, I only heard about it from the elders. As for the exact feeling of exploring the endless Eastern Sea, I don't know. Finally, Qin Wushuang understood. In the end, the friendly competition was a competition for a spot. This way, exploring the endless Eastern Sea was certainly an exceptional opportunity. That was why the 3 great empires were fighting for this spot. Senior brother Wei, since ancient times, have you gained any great gains from exploring this endless Eastern Sea? I have never heard of any great gains. Wei Yi said with a smile. However, apparently, each sect had tasted the sweetness. Or else, how could they be so passionate about this friendly competition? Qin Wushuang thought it made sense. If there were no gains, why would they care so much about an imaginary ranking? Naturally, the competition for that spot held great significance to exploring the endless Eastern Sea. In this world, the rules were similar to his former world. One would not rise early if there were no benefit. For sure, the 3 great empires had their own reasons for working so hard. On the surface, all the major sects of the 3 empires are qualified to participate in this friendly competition. However, in fact, those small sects are only there to serve as a contrast. The friendly competition is mainly a competition between the Stargaze Palace, the Archaic Mysteries sect, and the Dragon and Tiger sect. Everything else is just a small interlude that can be dispensed with. Wei Yi laughed straightforwardly and suddenly asked, "Junior brother Qin, do you have any personal goals for this competition?" Qin Wushuang was stunned as he shook his head. "I know nothing about the rules of this friendly competition. I don't even know what the competition is. Of course, it's not a personal goal. However, I see that the head palace master and my teacher are extremely passionate about this competition. I can see that they place great importance on it. The elders are so eager. As juniors, we can only do our best to win the championship and make them happy." Wei Yi nodded seriously. "That's right. Since junior brother Qin knows nothing about the rules, I have studied the rules. Since I have some free time, I will tell you about it." Qin Wushuang said happily. Indeed, I couldn't ask for more. For half a year, Qin Wushuang had been living in seclusion at the Qin house. When he returned to the Stargaze Palace, he left after seeing his teacher. And Tan Zhongqi was also prepared to tell him the rules after he arrived at the Heavenly Lake Empire to prevent him from getting distracted. Today, when they had just gathered, Tan Zhongqi did not even have the time to explain the rules. Wei Yi said, "The friendly competition is somewhat similar to the year-end exam at the Stargaze Palace. However, it is not the same. It is divided into 3 sections. Each country can only send 16 young disciples to participate. And for these 16 young disciples, there are some rules. Each country's number 1 sect will send 10 people, and the other sects will send 6. In total, there will be 16 people." When he said here, Wei Yi paused for a moment and continued, "The first section will not count points. It will be an elimination round. Among the 48 people from the 3 empires, half of them will be eliminated. The remaining half will automatically enter the second section and start the official competition." Eliminate half of them? Will half of them be eliminated from each country, or will half be eliminated regardless of nationality? Regardless of nationality, half will be eliminated. Wei Yi said seriously, "In this first round, no points will be counted. However, the competition will start from the first round. The performance of this round will determine the number of people from each country entering the semi-final. Think about it, if the result of the first round is not ideal. If the number of people entering the semi-final is lower than the average of 8, it will be troublesome. It is because in the semi-final, the difference between having 1 more person and 1 less person is sometimes decisive. Unless one of the top 2 people from each country appears. 1 person is worth 2? Qin Wushuang smiled. Me and senior brother Wei should be worth 2 initial stage warriors. It should not be a problem, right? Of course, it will not be a problem. Wei Yi also explained with a smile, however, each country has middle stage warriors. Thus, sometimes this advantage will cancel each other out. Of course, this time, the Stargaze Palace has 2 middle stage warriors. This advantage will most likely become the decisive factor. If the other 2 countries do not have any trump cards and only have 1 middle stage warrior each, then we will have the advantage in this section. To a large extent, it will determine the final direction of the friendly competition. Wei Yi sighed. Along the way, I could also feel the expectations from my fellow disciples and the pressure from being the senior brother. At that time, I thought that if junior brother Qin was here, for sure, the situation in the Stargaze Palace would be different. Unexpectedly, junior brother Qin is still here. You don't know that with your appearance, half of the pressure on my shoulders has been removed. I also look forward to fighting the enemies together with you and fighting for the honor for the Stargaze Palace." Wei Yi laughed. Back to the topic, the rules of that first round of elimination are similar to that martial arts student exam. The format is similar, but the content is somewhat different. You just need to know the details. When the time comes, you will know the detailed rules. Compared to that martial arts student exam, there will be less chance and more certainty. It will be stricter in terms of stage, strength, and other aspects. It will be clear whether you are strong or weak. Thus, the chance of an upset is not 100%, but it will be minimal. After the elimination round, the second round will also be a variety of tests. There will also be a score evaluation. Then, it will be the third round. The third round will be the true main theme, martial arts competition. Martial arts competition could be said to be the most popular and the most direct form of competition in the Tianxian land. Although this method was primitive and monotonous, it was the most convincing. Now, Qin Wushuang understood why the Stargaze Palace would organize a year-end exam every year. As it turned out, the frequent tests were targeted and not completely meaningless. And of course, this targeted competition was the friendly competition between the three Eastern empires. The format was similar and the content was similar. When Qin Wushuang heard up to this point, he also had some understanding. If that was the case, then everything would not be strange. However, Wei Yi said, "Junior brother Qin, this martial arts competition is different from the Stargaze Palace's rounds of advancement. It will not allow any drawing of lots. In other words, it is not an elimination ranking competition. However, it also has the cruelty of an elimination round. There are two possibilities of either continuing or getting eliminated." On the other hand, Qin Wushuang felt a burst of curiosity. "Senior brother Wei, what is the exact content of this martial arts competition?" Hearing Wei Yi's words, Qin Wushuang could not help but become interested in the rules of this martial arts competition. "Sorry, I was delayed tonight. That's why the update is late. However, the fifth update will not be short. There are still 2 more updates. I will try to finish it before 2220. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com. Support the author, support the original reading." Chapter 285. Wei Yi explained slowly. For this martial arts competition, first of all, it depends on the number of people from each country that entered the semi-final. If you have more spots, you will have an advantage. More spots will give you an advantage? From Qin Wushuang's point of view, the martial arts competition relied on real skills. If you had more people, it would be useless if you met someone stronger. Yes, this advantage is obvious. Wei Yi said with a determined tone. For example, if there is a country that has 8 people entering the semi-final, then, among these 8 people, half of them would be defenders and the other half would be attackers. Any of the contestants in the arena had 4 chances to challenge another country. In total, the opponents would be 2 countries. In total, it would be 8 chances. Of course, this is only a theoretical challenge. Perhaps some weak candidates would lose the first challenge. Then, they would be disqualified directly. Without the chance to challenge, they could only be challenged. And according to the rules, the challengers would be the attackers. Only the attackers would have points. Regardless of winning or losing, those who are challenged would be defenders and would not have the qualifications to get points. To ordinary people, there would not be much difference between 2 or 8 chances. However, to elite warriors, 2 or 8 chances would mean many more chances to earn points. When he said here, Qin Wushuang glanced at Qin Wushuang meaningfully. In other words, if a country only had 7 places to enter the semifinals, not only would the distribution of attackers and defenders be less than other countries, resulting in an imbalance between offense and defense. This disadvantage would be very obvious. Qin Wushuang understood the meaning behind this glance. Indeed, he and Wei Yi were both elite warriors from the Stargaze Palace. Thus, perhaps, only the 2 of them would have the opportunity to earn points. Junior brother Qin, these challenges are not repeated mechanically. After each challenge, the difficulty of the next challenge would increase. The first time, it would be 1-on-1. The second time, it would be 1-on-2, and so on. This time, Qin Wushuang finally understood why Wei Yi said that the content of this competition was different. Indeed, it sounded completely different. It also avoided any chance of drawing lot. The first challenge would be 1-on-1. For each subsequent challenge, the number of opponents would increase by 1. Naturally, the difficulty level would continue to increase. However, Qin Wushuang asked, but what if a certain country has 9 or even 10 people who enter the semifinals? The corner of Wei Yi's mouth twitched, and he said seriously, 9 people, the number of times they can attack the arena is still 4. If it's 10 people, they will have 5 chances. Their advantage in numbers was about to be revealed. If a country has 3 defenders, then the attacking side will win the third round. In the fourth round, if the defending side doesn't have enough people, it's equivalent to losing without a fight and letting the other side gain points for nothing. Qin Wushuang's heart trembled. Only now did he understand why the number of people who qualified after the preliminary round was so important. According to this calculation, if someone could really win consecutively during the challenge, the advantage in the quota would be too obvious. Smiling faintly, Qin Wushuang was not overly excited. Instead, he said, fighting 1 against 3, or even 1 against 4, the chances of victory are still slim. However, Wei Yi shook his head and said, it's not uncertain. This is 1 against 4. You don't have to defeat all 4 to win. You only need to defeat any one of them in a 1 versus 4 battle to win. Because if you can defeat one of the opponents in a situation where you are outnumbered, it means you have the upper hand. Therefore, for the defending side, it is very important to restrain the opponent. If you can restrain the opponent within the stipulated time and make him unable to defeat any one of them, it will be considered a successful defending side. Defeating one of them was considered a victory. For the defending side, this was indeed very difficult. Qin Wushuang couldn't help but ask, if that's the case, wouldn't the defending side's tacit understanding and cooperation be very important? If there is a superior formation, wouldn't it be easy to deal with this situation? Wei Yi sighed and said, among the major forces of the 3 eastern countries, there is no one who has a superior formation. However, the rules of the competition are that the defending side of each country cannot use formations. They can only rely on simple tacit understanding and cooperation, and cannot use group attack and group defense formations. This challenge is mainly about the defending side of the arena, not the defending side of the arena. Qin Wushuang smiled bitterly again and again. This rule is too much of an individual's strength. The rules are like this, it is to highlight a strong individual's strength. However, on the other hand, isn't this beneficial to you, junior brother Qin? Qin Wushuang gave a long sigh and said, I only hope that I can win glory for the sect and do my best. By the way, senior brother Wei, how do we calculate the points of this challenge? It's simple, each defending side of the arena will count as 10 points. After accumulating, it will be the total points of the individual. For example, if you win the first round, you will get 10 points. If you win the second round, you will get 20 points, and the third round will get 30 points. After accumulating, in the end, it will be the total points of the individual. And when the points of all the participants from each country are added together, it will be the total points of the entire country. Since Wei Yi had explained it clearly, Qin Wushuang naturally understood. Senior brother Wei, in the martial arts competition, shouldn't there be a clear division of labor between the attacking and defending side of the arena? Both attack and defense must be balanced. It would be useless if one side were to appear. When you attack the arena, you will get all the points. However, when you defend the arena, you will be forced to retreat. Advancing and retreating would be useless. Yes, in such martial arts competition, the balance of attack and defense is extremely important. Thus, it would be an ideal situation to have 2 middle-stage warriors. One will be in charge of the defending side, and the other one will be in charge of the attacking side. With both offense and defense, it would be invincible. Qin Wushuang moved his brows and revealed a knowing smile. Apparently, for the Stargaze Palace side, for sure, these two would be in charge of one side each. Of course, there was not much difference between being in charge of offense and defense. It did not mean that one must be in charge of defense if they had strong defensive skills. It would not be useful to have a strong defensive power in a situation where there were many of them. One must also have the power to attack. Or else, if one of your side was defeated, it would count as a failure to defend the arena. It would be useless regardless of how good your defense was. You must ensure that your teammate would not be defeated. Only then, it would count as a successful defense. When he thought here, Qin Wushuang could not help but feel somewhat confused. Senior Brother Wei Yi, if one of the defending side were to get injured, then what would happen to the empty spot? Basically, for this arena competition, only the winner and loser will be determined, and not life and death. Even if there are some injuries, it would not affect the overall situation. However, if they are unable to fight due to serious injuries, they would have to bear the consequences. If there are only 4 people defending the arena, and one of them is unable to fight, then it would only be 3 people. Then, for the opponent's challenge, as long as they can pass the 3rd round, they would have won the 4th round without a fight. Thus, to the defending side, they would not be able to see the merits, but the mission would be extremely dangerous. Qin Wushuang gave a long sigh. This rule is truly abnormal. Both of them laughed. On the Stargaze Palace side, with these two in charge, regardless of attacking or defending the arena, they would have the confidence to win. Junior Brother Qin, this is not our first time working together. I hope the result this time will be more resplendent and magnificent than last time. Last time, they had worked together to kill that elder Qin Jun in gray robes. This time, they would be facing the big stage of the friendly competition. Their performance would directly determine the final result of the great Luo Empire. The two of them clapped their hands and made an oath. Although they did not speak any heroic words, everything was understood without words. From each other's eyes, they had read the determination and courage to win. Okay, Junior Brother Qin, it's getting late, get some rest. This martial arts competition is only the 3rd round. It's the final battle. Don't think too much, let's walk step by step. When the conditions are right, success will follow. Okay. The two of them waved goodbye. Qin Wushuang returned to his room and carefully digested the rules. He knew that this 3rd round would be the most crucial and would determine the outcome. For this night, Qin Wushuang had a good rest. The next morning, according to the arrangement, all the powerhouses of the Great Luo gathered together and waited for the Stargaze Palace's arrangements. Since the rules required that the strongest sex in each country could only send out 10 people, the other 6 must be sent out by other powerhouses. Then, they could only follow the rules. This selection took 2 or 3 days. Finally, they had selected 6 relatively outstanding candidates. However, compared to the group of core disciples from the Stargaze Palace, these elite disciples from their own sex could not help but pale in comparison. Without a doubt, these 6 spots were just for show. To enter the semifinals, they must rely on the 10 core disciples from the Stargaze Palace. Regarding the semifinals, Zhuobuchuan and the other palace masters did not ask for too much. Zhuobuchuan said, "From previous experiences, usually, there would not be any accidents with 8 spots from each country. Rarely, there would be an uneven distribution of spots. However, you must not let down your guard. We will not ask for 9 spots. However, we must protect the 8 spots no matter what. Or else, in the end, there will be an imbalance in the distribution of offense and defense. It will greatly affect the overall situation." All the participants nodded. This was something that everyone understood without needing to be explained. Naturally, the 10 spots from the Stargaze Palace were the top 10 that had gone to the Green Jade Mountain for business. After 20 years of waiting, 20 years of reincarnation, The friendly competition between the three empires had finally begun with a bang. Outside the mountain square of the Archaic Mysteries sect of the Heavenly Lake Empire, a grand opening ceremony was held as scheduled, and the participants from each country were also present. Each of their faces was filled with expectation. They were waiting for the end of this boring ceremony to get to the main topic. After the ceremony, the three strongest warriors from the Stargaze Palace, the Archaic Mysteries sect, and the Dragon and Tiger sect stood together and announced the start of the competition. Of course, the first part was to hand in the list of participants. Each of them had 3 copies of the list. They would keep one and give the other 2 to their opponent. After the list had been handed over, it was time to match the names of the participants to prevent any problems such as cheating. When the Archaic Mysteries sect had read the name Qin Wushuang, all the higher-ups of the sect had a change of expression. Qin Wushuang? Didn't this person die at the Green Jade Mountain? Because of this, the Stargaze Palace had fought with the Archaic Mysteries sect for a long time. How come he had appeared at this time? I am at fault, today I am writing too slowly. Most likely, I will not be able to write the 5th chapter at 22:20. Most likely, the 5th chapter will be delayed until 2300 hours. Those who cannot wait, go to sleep and read it tomorrow. I will not be lazy, for sure, I will write the 5th chapter. I will do what I say and never go back on my words. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 286. The face of those heads of the Archaic Mysteries sect became serious. Apparently, they all realized that they had been tricked by the Stargaze Palace during the battle at the Green Jade Mountain. The Stargaze Palace had announced that they had lost an Upper Sky Core disciple. Wasn't it this Qin Wushuang? Now, how come this Qin Wushuang had come to participate in the friendly competition? Gao Yu could not help but mock. Head Palace Master Zhua, the Stargaze Palace has been scheming. Did you say that a living person was a dead person to confuse the eyes and ears of the Archaic Mysteries sect? Zhua Buchuan also did not know whether to laugh or cry. However, he could not explain and could only say half-heartedly, "Nothing is too deceitful in war." Gao Yu said angrily, "You guys are playing tricks, it has nothing to do with the Archaic Mysteries sect. However, the person who did not die, on that day, your great Luo was entangled with the Heavenly Lake Empire. Clearly, you were fishing in troubled waters, and a thief calling out to catch a thief." However, Zhua Buchuan shook his head. "No, it's natural for the great Luo to defend the Green Jade Mountain. It's the right of a sovereign country. And those powerhouses that do not have the right to rule the Green Jade Mountain and want to mess around inside are the real thieves, right? Or else, why would you act so sneakily and go for wool and come home shorn?" "Nonsense." Gao Yu scolded angrily. "Everyone knows that half of the Green Jade Mountain belongs to the Heavenly Lake Empire. Since when did the great Luo own it exclusively? It's useless to say more. Currently, the Green Jade Mountain is in ruins. Sect Master Gao wouldn't even let those ruins go, right?" Gao Yu's face turned ashen. What value did the current Green Jade Mountain have? When this Zhua Buchuan spoke sarcastic words, how could he know that he was feeling sorry for those 5 elders? On the other hand, Shi Chenglong, the head of the Dragon and Tiger sect, smiled. "You too, at this moment, you are still in the mood to bicker. There are so many candidates below the stage waiting for us to verify their identities and announce the rules." Shi Chenglong's words made Gao Yu feel even more frustrated. However, he did not lose his temper. On the other hand, Zhua Buchuan was at ease, as if he had a card up his sleeve, and was not worried at all. The verification of identities was not complicated and it was completed soon. After the verification, he started announcing the rules. Indeed, as Wei Yi had said, The rules of the first round were somewhat similar to that martial arts student exam Qin Wushuang had participated. It was also to find the jade plates. However, the search for the jade tablet this time was completely different from the last time. The jade tokens this time were made at the last minute. Furthermore, they were tailor-made for each person. Each person had 10 jade tokens. These 10 jade tokens would be infused with the spiritual power in each participant's chi. Then, they would be sealed and thrown into the training ground. These jade tokens all had their own spiritual aura. Therefore, each contestant had to rely on this spiritual aura to search for their own jade token. This was a test of the contestant's spiritual energy realm and sensitivity to spiritual energy. In the end, it was a test of cultivation level. It was no wonder that way you would say that the difference between the strong and the weak would be very obvious here. Those with low cultivation bases wouldn't be able to sense the jade medallion as well as those with high cultivation bases. Thus, in a limited amount of time, there would be a difference in the number of cards obtained. The most important thing was that each of these 10 jade tokens had a different level. From 1 point to 10 points, the difficulty would increase and the hidden depth would increase. In other words, it might be easy to find 1 point, 2 or 3 points. However, the further it went, the more difficult it would be. And in the final competition, the total score would be calculated. Thus, the difference between the strong and the weak would be reflected without a doubt. Qin Wushuang digested this rule and laughed inwardly. Although the content is different, it is still to find the jade tokens. With the experience from last time, this time, I have gained a little advantage. Of course, since the rules were different, it would determine his strategy to change accordingly. For these jade tokens, besides the one that corresponded to him, the others were not related to him. He would not be able to tell who they belonged to. Thus, even if he saw them, he could not take them or destroy them. It was because he could not guarantee whether the one he destroyed belonged to the enemy or his own country. Of course, there was another point. The contestants were not allowed to attack each other. All in all, the only mission of every single person was to wholeheartedly search for the 10 jade tokens that belonged to them. Everything else was of no importance and was useless. Even if you found 100 other people's jade tokens and defeated all your opponents, it would be useless. In the first round of the competition, only the 10 jade tokens that belonged to him were recognized. The more he found, the more he would get. The rules were simple, but the atmosphere was extremely tense. In the first round of the semifinals, the trial area is only 300 miles. But I must tell you, if you find other people's jade tokens, it is best not to dig them out. Because there is a 2/3 chance that you will be helping your opponent. And there is only a 1/3 chance that you will be helping your own country's contestants. You should know how to weigh the pros and cons of this. Therefore, you only have one goal, and that is to search for your own jade tokens wholeheartedly. The time limit is only 3 days. It is very short and hurried. This also means that in these 3 days and 3 nights, you must not stop. You cannot be the slightest bit careless or careless. And because the time limit is short, the final result will be very clear. Remember, there are a total of 48 of you. The 480 jade tokens will be stored by the 3 leaders of the 3 empires. Every storage will be done fairly. And the degree of difficulty will also be very reasonable. There will never be a situation where some people find it easy and others find it difficult. This kind of exchange competition had gone through many rounds. Basically, it was impossible for the host to have any possibility of cheating. Because the trial area they provided also had to be decided by the leaders of the 3 empires. Then, they would let the contestants adapt for 2 days before the competition officially began. In this way, the host would also avoid any geographical advantage. After the announcement of the first round of the competition, they began to collect each contestant's spiritual energy and create their corresponding jade tokens. This procedure also required the joint supervision of the 3 leaders. Every contestant went up on stage one by one and poured in spiritual energy. The amount must be exactly the same. Otherwise, the amount of spiritual energy in the jade token would also affect the degree of difficulty in finding the jade token. After all, if there was more spiritual energy, it would naturally be much easier to sense. When it was Qin Wushuang's turn, he did not show off too much. He generously poured in his spiritual energy and made the 10 jade tokens. Only then did he go down. When all the contestants had completed this procedure, the most depressed one was the head of the Archaic Mysteries sect, Gao Yu. During this process, he had been paying attention to the situation of each contestant, especially the contestants from the 2 empires. He had been observing them without missing a single one. He discovered with depression that regardless of the Stargaze Palace or the Dragon and Tiger sect, they both had 2 middle-stage warriors. And now, as the host, the Archaic Mysteries sect only had 1 middle-stage warrior left. He was Gao Yu's head disciple, Luo Guiyun. Luo Guiyun was the only one with the natural spiritual roots in the Heavenly Lake Empire. He was slightly older than Wei Yi. Currently, he also had a high level of strength and was the publicly recognized leader of the Archaic Mysteries sect. And Devil Boy, a rising star among the younger generation, had looked down on everything. Yet, he did not dare to show the slightest disrespect to this senior brother Luo Guiyun. It was apparent that Luo Guiyun was powerful. At least, he could make Devil Boy fearful of him. His strength and temperament were extraordinary. Only, in this friendly competition, if each of the opponents had 2 middle-stage warriors and the Heavenly Lake Empire only had 1, it would be troublesome. Inwardly, Gao Yu was furious and held a grudge against Devil Boy's death. However, up to this point, the Heavenly Lake Empire had no other choice but to press on. After all, middle-stage warriors were not cabbages or radishes that could not be produced easily. Inwardly, he swore. The Stargaze Palace is cunning and did not hesitate to spread rumors to confuse people. The Dragon and Tiger sect has hidden dragons and crouching tigers. They also have 2 core disciples at the middle stage. Indeed, it's troublesome. It seems that I must not let down my guard for any of the houses. Too bad for Devil Boy. If he was here, with his attack power, he would be in charge of attacking and Guiyun would be in charge of defending. With 1 attacking and 1 defending, how could I let those 2 take advantage? Although he felt depressed, he could only accept the reality. I only hope that this time I can build a relationship with the Red Dragon Empire. If I can build a relationship with the Red Dragon Empire, I can still regret it even if my results are not ideal. For that endless Eastern Sea, it's one thing to explore it with those 2 countries. It's also one thing to explore it with the Red Dragon Empire. If I can pull the Red Dragon Empire onto the big ship to explore the endless Eastern Sea, why would I care about their thoughts? Inwardly, Gao Yu was calculating rapidly. He had already started to think of other methods. Zhuobuchuan had been observing Gao Yu with cold eyes. When he saw that Gao Yu was expressionless, yet viciousness emerged from the corner of his eyes from time to time, he could not help but be on guard. And the Dragon and Tiger sect's dragon head, Shi Chenglong, was also observing Gao Yu. Inwardly, he was also on guard. He exchanged a glance with Zhuobuchuan, and they both understood each other. At the Heavenly Lake Empire, these guests could not be careless. After all the matters had been discussed, the contestants were dismissed for now. The 3 leaders, on the other hand, chose the location for the first round. They chose a training ground that was 300 miles wide. After the selection, the contestants would have 2 days to get used to the place and understand it. This was to be fair and to prevent the Archaic Mysteries sect from taking advantage of the geographical location. With 2 days to get used to the place, regardless of the contestants from the Great Luo or the Vermilion Empire, they would not be unfamiliar with the place. After getting used to the place, the 3 leaders started to bury those jade plates. The place where they buried them was also random. This also prevented the possibility of the archaic mysteries sect cheating with their disciples. And after arranging these jade plates, these three leaders would not leave each other's side until the end of the first round. This way, the possibility of leaking information would also be cut off. Everything was ready except for the east wind. On the 7th day of the 7th month, the first round of the competition had officially started. All 48 contestants were thrown into this 300 miles training ground in 48 directions. 300 kilometers was not considered very far, but if 48 people were to enter, it would be like 48 stones being thrown into a river. There would not be any sense of crowding. Qin Wushuang calmed down and took a deep breath. He knew that a new battle had begun. This time, it was no longer a competition between sections. It was a genuine battle for the country, for the sex, and for the survival and status of the great Luo Empire. Phew, it's finally done. This transitional chapter is much more difficult to write than the main plot. It's like building a house. The foundation and framework are more difficult. Laying bricks is much easier. The next step is laying brick. Brothers, let's continue. By the way, I recommend a book, The Beauty's Guardian. Book number 1724419. Author, Super Jackal. The Valiant Life of a Flashy Man. The man who is called the Beauty's Guardian by everyone, possessing the strength to make all the mothers-in-law in the world fall in love with him, this super evildoer is worried about which family's daughter to choose. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 287. To Qin Wushuang, such preliminary competition was not challenging at all. He was more curious about what senior brother Wei Yi had said about the secrets of the endless Eastern Sea. If the endless Eastern Sea was truly that mysterious, it would be worth exploring. Regardless, since the palace masters of the Stargaze Palace placed such importance on this competition, then the exploration of that endless Eastern Sea would be extremely important. Qin Wushuang decided to exert all his efforts. Currently, among the younger generation of the three Eastern empires, Qin Wushuang was definitely one of the best. Thus, although this preliminary competition was somewhat difficult, it was not difficult for him. In the first day, Qin Wushuang had successfully found 7 jade plates. With the result of the first day, it would not be a problem for him to enter the semifinals. Qin Wushuang did not want to show off his talent. On the first night, he did not make a move. Instead, he found a relatively remote place to conserve his energy. Thinking about it, it was also fortunate that when he absorbed the spiritual power of the ghost boy, he deliberately found a corner to completely integrate the spiritual power. Otherwise, when making these jade cards and injecting spiritual power, if the head of the Tianji sect, Gao Yu, felt a sense of familiarity, then it would inevitably be troublesome. After a night, Qin Wushuang made a move again. He decided to finish the task a day earlier. In total, he had 3 days. If he finished it a day earlier, he would not appear to be in the limelight and could save a day. Thus, on the second day, Qin Wushuang's speed had increased significantly. He wandered around and searched for the remaining 3 jade plates that belonged to him. It wasn't long before he found the 8th spiritual power jade medallion that belonged to him in a small creek under a mountain stream. For sure, the next 2 must be in a more hidden and difficult to find places. The difficulty of this 8th piece is already like this. I believe that at this level of difficulty, most people would not be able to find their jade plate. As Qin Wushuang thought about it, he did not stop and continued to search. It wasn't until noon that Qin Wushuang found his 9th jade pendant under the grass near a cave. Just as he was about to turn around, he suddenly saw a figure flash in front of him. He saw Zhao Muji coming out from the other side of the valley. When he saw Qin Wushuang, Zhao Muji said happily, "Junior Marshal Brother Qin, What a coincidence! 300 miles, 48 people, there was still a chance for them to meet. However, this was the first time that Qin Wushuang had met a disciple from his own sect. This was not because of other people, but because Qin Wushuang had always kept a low profile. He rarely went to crowded places, so he rarely met people. "Senior brother Zhao, how's your harvest?" "Hee, I'm looking for the 7th piece. Previously, I thought that this kind of test content was simply rubbish. Now, it seems that it's not as easy as I thought." Zhao Muji sighed and said, "But my luck is good. I found the most difficult 10-point tile. Haha." He had 6 jade plates in his hand. "Alright, junior brother Qin, how's your harvest?" "Same as you, I'm looking for the 8th piece." Qin Wushuang made up a lie out of kindness. He did not want his fellow disciples to feel awkward before his power. Stunned, Zhao Muji nodded. "Yes, you should be able to find all of them in 3 days, right? I will try to find 8 or 9 pieces." "I wonder how the other disciples are doing?" Qin Wushuang asked curiously. Zhao Muji said, "I met Zhou Fu. Like me, she is looking for the 7th one. Senior brother Wei is looking for the 9th one. No wonder you two are the best in the Stargaze Palace." Qin Wushuang smiled lightly. "Although the points from this preliminary round will not carry into the semi-final round, it will affect the spots. I only hope that all of us can advance smoothly. This way, we will have a greater chance in the semi-final round. By the way, senior brother Zhao, I've concluded that the probability of hiding jade plates is higher in the valley and cave area. If you meet someone from the same sect, you can share these with them." "Okay." Zhao Muji kept nodding. "Time is tight, let's not chat anymore. Let's keep working hard." The two of them nodded, smiled at each other and left. Naturally, Qin Wushuang did not feel any pressure when he had obtained the 9 jade plates. Even if he did not look for that 10th jade plate, he would still find it. Finally, in the evening, before the sun had set, Qin Wushuang found the 10th jade plate that belonged to him in one of the cracks of the cliff. Just when he was about to jump up from that sheer cliff, suddenly, he felt his hand had loosened. The rock that he had used to climb up fell down and Qin Wushuang's body slid down. Next, Qin Wushuang felt that a large area of the mountain kept falling down. That situation seemed to be the legendary landslide. And the cliff below Qin Wushuang was tens of thousands of meters deep. Unless he could transform into a bird, or else, once he fell down, he would only end up with his body smashed into pieces. Even an elite warrior at the perfect stage would not be able to do anything. In the blink of an eye, Qin Wushuang felt a wave of spiritual qi from the top of the cliff. Behind this wave, there was a cold sneer that was sent down lightly. Qin Wushuang realized that it was not a landslide, but a man-made one. Fortunately, Qin Wushuang did not panic despite his busy schedule. He flicked his sleeve, and the snake-shaped soft whip had already wrapped around a tree that protruded from the sheer cliff 6 meters away. Just by borrowing the force, Qin Wushuang's body swayed and shot horizontally like a pendulum clock. Again, he borrowed the force and moved horizontally to the side. He knew that he could not jump up. Or else, if this person was still waiting for him up there, wouldn't he be walking right into a trap? In a hurry, in his passive position, if the enemy wanted to attack him slightly, he would have no way to retreat and could only fall down the 10,000 meters cliff. In such a short time, Qin Wushuang had considered all kinds of situations. He kept moving horizontally. Instead of going up, he kept falling down. He knew that the closer his body was to the bottom of the cliff, the less the enemy's destructive power would affect him. Finally, Qin Wushuang stopped when he had dropped 10 meters below the ground. Don't underestimate those few moves. In fact, Qin Wushuang had used all of his methods to escape from danger. The enemy's plan was extremely vicious. It seemed that they had been lying in ambush for a long time in the surrounding area and prepared to ambush him. "Who is it?" Qin Wushuang leaned against the sheer cliff and felt the hostility. After a moment, He realized that the enemy should have already left. Could it be that he thought that his ambush would succeed? He didn't even have the interest to come over and take a look? Qin Wushuang kept analyzing in his mind. He felt that this matter was most likely related to the disciples of the Archaic Mysteries sect. Besides, to be able to grasp the timing so accurately in such a short period of time, and to be able to crack the stone wall of the cliff by himself, this method seemed to have surpassed the scope of the initial stage of the spiritual martial force. I just don't know if this person had already ambushed others? Vividly, Qin Wushuang was worried. What if it were other disciples of the Stargaze Palace? They would not have survived this attack. If Qin Wushuang did not have that snake-shaped soft whip and had dodged 2 meters away in a flash, most likely he would have only one ending. That would be to fall off the cliff and be smashed into pieces. When he thought here, Qin Wushuang felt somewhat angry inwardly. Of course, he would not consider the rules. The rules did not allow the participants to attack each other in the preliminary round. However, since this person dared to make a move, for sure, he would be able to evade the eyes and ears of others. He would only come once. Whether he succeeded or not, he would retreat immediately and not leave any traces. Even if Qin Wushuang went up now, he would not be able to find out who had made the move. Indeed, it's a good plan. Inwardly, Qin Wushuang was burning with anger. This person wanted to take his life as soon as he made a move. If Qin Wushuang knew who this person was, of course, he would not let him go. Don't let me know who you are. Inwardly, Qin Wushuang thought with hatred as he climbed up the cliff. When he arrived at the top of the cliff, he saw that the 1-meter-wide stone wall had completely collapsed at his previous position. It had sunk 6 or 7 meters deep. The mountain rocks kept rolling down. If a person was there, for sure, he would have been pressed down the cliff. With lingering fear, Qin Wushuang glanced around coldly to make sure that this person had left. Then, he left angrily. Although he had already acquired the 10 jade plates, he had changed his mind and would not leave the arena for the time being. Now, with the existence of an enemy that specialized in ambushing people from the dark, his fellow disciples from the Stargaze Palace would inevitably be harassed by him. Thus, Qin Wushuang decided to stay and protect his fellow disciples. At the same time, he would also observe who this person was. Since you don't follow the rules, then let's play outside the rules. Qin Wushuang sneered. Just as he was about to step forward, he saw Miao Zhongxia, the head disciple of the 5th Palace Master, walking towards the cliff where he had been. Qin Wushuang immediately called out, "Senior brother Miao, where are you going?" When Miao Zhongxia saw that it was Qin Wushuang, he laughed. "I sense that there seemed to be a jade plate ahead, so I'm going to take a look. Only, this spiritual qi presence is extremely weak and intermittent. I don't know if it's accurate." However, Qin Wushuang asked, "How many have you found?" "I am ashamed, I am only looking for the 7th one. What about you? Have you found everything?" Qin Wushuang nodded. "I have collected everything. Senior brother Miao, I will go with you. There is a cliff ahead, and it's extremely steep. I almost suffered a great loss there." Immediately, he explained the situation at the cliff. Miao Zhongxia's expression changed slightly. "Do you know who the killer is?" "That person is extremely cunning. After that attack, he disappeared. We don't have any clues." Then, he said to Miao Zhongxia, "I am going to protect you. This way, we will not need to be afraid of those evil people sneaking up on us Stargaze disciples." Miao Zhongxia said gratefully, "Junior brother Qin is warm-hearted and truly admirable. If I go back this time, I will find Junior brother Lu and Junior brother Gu. I will ask them to let go of the grudges between the West Chu and you. They must not hold any grudges. Senior brother Miao, you are too polite. Now we are working for the sect and for the great Luo Empire. Let's go." 2 silhouettes flew towards the cliff. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com. Come to read more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 288. With Qin Wushuang's protection, Miao Zhongxia did not encounter any real threats after obtaining the jade plate. Soon, he found his 7th jade plate. After leaving this place, Qin Wushuang and Miao Zhongxia agreed to spread the information about the sneak attack. When they met any disciples of the Stargaze Palace, they would warn them to prevent them from suffering a great loss. Qin Wushuang had completed his task of finding the jade plates without any burden. Thus, he was much more efficient than Miao Zhongxia when he spread the information. Especially at night, if that person intended to sneak attack, he must be on guard. According to the rules, whoever attacked the opponent would affect the result of the entire country. Therefore, sneak attacks were strenuous and unrewarding, and rarely happened in the preliminary rounds. However, Qin Wushuang had encountered it. He speculated that the people of the Vermilion Empire would not be so bored and would not have any motive. For sure, the biggest suspect would be the Heavenly Lake Empire and the Archaic Mysteries sect. Before the sky turned dark, Qin Wushuang went to the border area and complained to the 3 leaders. Of course, he also knew that such complaints would not have any effect. After all, he had no evidence and he did not even know who the attacker was. When he returned to the exam site, Qin Wushuang happened to meet Senior Brother Wei Yi. Senior Brother Wei Yi showed a somewhat displeased expression. When he saw Qin Wushuang, he immediately greeted him. "Junior Brother Qin, how did it go?" "I already finished collecting the jade plates, Senior Brother Wei. How about you?" Wei Yi said, "I also just finished it. I heard from my fellow disciples that someone had attacked you?" "Yes." At the moment, Qin Wushuang told him about what had happened inside the cliff. Apparently, Wei Yi was also somewhat depressed because of this matter. After hearing Qin Wushuang's words, he nodded and said, "Since you and I have collected all the jade plates, then we have a plan. I am afraid this person did not attack you to stop you from getting the jade plates, but to use the opportunity to harm you." "Senior Brother Wei, who do you think this person is?" Wei Yi shook his head. "Among your opponents, there are only 3 people who have the power to attack you. 1 from the Archaic Mysteries sect, 2 from the Dragon and Tiger sect. As for the other contestants, even if they wanted to, they didn't have the guts or the strength to do so. Therefore, that person might have come for the 2 of us." "Senior Martial Brother Wei has also encountered it?" Qin Wushuang asked curiously. Wei Yi shook his head. "I'm luckier than you. I haven't been targeted by him yet. Since this person has the leisure to deal with you, he must have already collected all the jade tokens. I am worried that since he could not deal with us, he would make a move against the other powerful disciples of the Stargaze Palace. Even if we don't kill them, it wouldn't be a good idea to harass them and prevent them from finding the jade tokens." Qin Wushuang's expression was grim. He nodded and said, "This is indeed something we have to guard against. Senior Brother Wei Yi, how about this? You and I will split into 2 groups and follow a few of our most powerful disciples. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Even if that person wanted to make a move, he would have to hold back. I won't dare to act rashly." Wei Yi sighed. "We can only use this stupid method. We are in the light and this man is in the dark. However, Junior Martial Brother Qin, I think Luo Guiyun of the Archaic Mysteries sect is the most suspicious. For this person, regardless of you or me, we will follow him and delay him until the end of the competition. How about it?" A trace of cold light flashed across Qin Wushuang's eyes as he answered, "Okay, Luo Guiyun." Qin Wushuang silently chewed on this name. He knew that this Luo Guiyun was the head disciple of Gao Yu, the head of the Archaic Mysteries sect. He was the strongest person among the younger generation of the Archaic Mysteries sect in the Heavenly Lake Empire. He also had the natural spiritual root. However, He was older than Senior Marshal Brother Wei and seemed to have a deeper stage. For this person, regardless of this friendly competition or in the future, he was destined to be a great enemy. Inwardly, Qin Wushuang calculated. He and Wei Yi split into two groups and started to patrol around the 300 miles training ground. Although this method was stupid, it was the only one they could do at the moment. Fortunately, nothing unexpected happened on this night. Under the care of Qin Wushuang and Wei Yi, Zhoufu, Zhao Muji and the others did not encounter any accidents on the way to find the jade plates. When the third day was about to end, these two had also collected all the jade plates. With 3 sharp whistling sounds, it announced the end of this preliminary round. Zhou Fu and Zhao Muji had become the last 2 candidates from the Stargaze Palace to get a perfect score. Next, it was Deng Bohu and Miao Zhongxia. One of them had acquired 9 plates and the other had acquired 8. There was no suspense. After all the candidates had come out, they handed in their jade plates and tallied their scores. However, the ranking of the results would only appear the next morning. The contestants who knew each other all gathered together and talked about their gains and losses. Early in the morning of the second day, everyone gathered outside the headquarters of the Archaic Mysteries sect to wait for the final results to be announced. Entering the semi-final was not only an honor, but also a great reward. Especially those small sections. Although they knew that they had little chance of entering the semi-final, they still held some hope. If one of their disciples was lucky enough to enter the semi-final, then for sure, this sect would have good luck and enter the eyes of the mainstream. It would be extremely beneficial to the development of the sect. Once again, the 3 leaders walked out together. From their expression, there should not be much suspense about the results of this preliminary round. Indeed, when the ranking list was posted, among the 24 candidates that had entered the semi-final, the 3 empires had each taken 8 spots. Not one more and not one less. One did not know if it was a prearranged arrangement or a coincidence. It was similar to the previous preliminary rounds. The distribution of the spots was still very equal. There were no unexpected mistakes. This way, regarding the gains and losses of the preliminary round, at least in this first round, the 3 empires had not determined a winner. For the Stargaze Palace, without any suspense, Wei Yi and Qin Wushuang were the leaders. Zhou Fu and Zhao Muji had also performed outstandingly and had also received a perfect score. Then, it was Deng Bohu and Miao Zhongxia. The remaining 7th spot was taken by Lu Xiaonan, the second disciple of the head palace master. As for the 8th place, there was a tie. For the line of the head palace master and the line of the second palace master, Huang Chaoyang and LV Ting had taken the same spot. This time, Tan Zhongqi did not compete. He let Huang Chaoyang take the spot and persuaded LV Ting to withdraw. LV Ting also knew that per the rules of the past, usually, it would be based on the ranking of the sect and the ranking of the sect. And LV Ting was ranked 9th among the core disciples of the sect. He was ranked lower than Huang Chaoyang. Thus, it was reasonable for him to give way. Although he was competitive, he knew to respect the rules and did not complain. This way, the 8 semi-final spots for the Great Luo had all been decided. After a day of adjustment, the next day would be the start of the semi-final round. After the list was set, regardless of the gains and losses, it was all in the past. Now, everyone's attention was focused on the upcoming semi-final round. They had completely thrown their personal gains and losses to the back of their mind. When they returned to their resting place, Zhuobuchuan gathered all the disciples. He comforted those who had not entered the semi-final and encouraged them. He said, "Boys, this is a rare opportunity. Our great Luo Empire has achieved many good results in the friendly competition between the 3 Eastern empires. However, in the friendly competition held by the Heavenly Lake Empire, we have never won the championship, and we have always been at the bottom. This time, it's our chance." There was a trace of fanaticism in the eyes of all the disciples. They looked at Zhuobuchuan and waited for him to continue. The friendly competition between the three Eastern empires is not as simple as you see it. The situation behind it involves the game between the three empires and many conflicts of interest. The most important point is the right to explore the endless Eastern Sea. The Stargaze Palace was able to become the leader of the Great Luo and the authority of the empire, not only because we occupied the virtuous Cloud Mountain range, but also because every 20 years, we would always get some benefits from the exploration of the endless Eastern Sea. These benefits are usually our biggest capital. To put it bluntly, how did the five of us palace masters enter the advanced stage before the others? Did we only rely on our talent? Not entirely. There was a trace of incitement in Zhuobuchuan's tone. On the path of martial arts, talent is important. However, opportunities and fortune cannot be ignored. The five of us were able to get ahead of the others because of the special opportunities we acquired from the exploration of the endless Eastern Sea. Tan Zhongqi and Tian Zhixing also nodded to show their affirmation of Zhuobuchuan's words. Although, for a few hundred years, countless Stargaze seniors had sacrificed their lives to explore the endless Eastern Sea. You could even say that it was a narrow escape. However, why did the three Eastern empires still rush forward one after another to acquire more spots to explore the endless Eastern Sea? They were all pursuing such special opportunities. There was a trace of sadness in Zhuobuchuan's tone. From my generation to yours, how many 20 years have passed? How many friendly competitions have there been? And currently, how many upper sky disciples does the Stargaze Palace have? Where did those disciples in the middle, those people, go? When these disciples heard these words, their hearts turned cold. In the past, they also had many similar questions. Not many of them were older than 40 years old. Their teacher and the others were close to 200 years old. For sure, many generations had passed. And what about those people? Although a portion of them had become Shakyamuni and elders, it was impossible for them to only have these few elite warriors after all these years, right? Perhaps you all guessed it. Many of the Stargaze Palace disciples before you had all participated in the friendly competition and went to explore the endless Eastern Sea. However, in the past 100 years, none of those who had gone to the endless Eastern Sea had returned. When Zhuobuchuan said here, a trace of strange light flashed across his eyes. Now, this mission is about to fall on your heads. Are you going to face the difficulties or retreat? In this friendly competition, use your performance to tell us the answer. At the same time, you will also tell those seniors the answer. It was a choice, and it would not be an easy one. If they chose to face the difficulties, even if they had won first place in this friendly competition, they would face a narrow escape from death when they explored the endless Eastern Sea. And if they chose to retreat, they would lose the opportunity to explore the endless Eastern Sea. Once the other two empires had succeeded in exploring the endless Eastern Sea and acquired the fortuitous opportunities, the Stargaze Palace would be left far behind in the future of the next generation. Thus, the entire Great Luo Empire would be left far behind. The young people all realized that this was not a choice for their own future, but a choice that would affect the fate of the entire sect, and even the entire country. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com, support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 289. Endless Eastern Sea. It was rumored that this endless Eastern Sea was a few tens of millions of miles wide. In the history of the human countries, there were countless records of people exploring that endless Eastern Sea. However, there were no records of people truly exploring beyond 100,000 miles. Since the endless Eastern Sea was filled with countless miraculous and unpredictable opportunities, the three Eastern empires that were closest to the endless Eastern Sea could be said as the main force to explore the endless Eastern Sea. For the other powerhouses of the human countries, Firstly, they were too far away from the endless Eastern Sea, and could not transport the giant ships to the endless Eastern Sea. Secondly, they could not pass through the vast border of the three Eastern empires and arrive at the border of the endless Eastern Sea. Besides, in the Tian land, not only this endless Eastern Sea was filled with fortuitous opportunities, there were many other places. Thus, of course, the other empires would not give up what was near and seek what was far away. They set their sights on the endless Eastern Sea. After a long time, these powerful empires of the human countries formed a tacit understanding. They would each explore the mysterious areas close to their own countries and not interfere with each other. This way, the exploration rights of the endless Eastern Sea had become the exclusive right of the three Eastern empires. It was not to say that the other empires could not explore. They could go if they wanted to. However, ships were not allowed to cross the border. Since the ships could not cross the border, they could not fly over. Thus, to the other empires, the endless Eastern Sea had become a grape that they could see but could not eat. The initial exploration of the three Eastern empires was also somewhat disorderly and without any restrictions. For this matter, they had created countless disputes and even fought with each other. Because of this reason, the three empires had discussed with each other and made many rules. No one was allowed to explore privately. This was the general principle. There were rules on how to explore and when to explore. The rules started from the friendly competition between the three Eastern empires. In the friendly competition of the three Eastern empires, it was agreed that the first to third place would get 10 places, 6 places, and 4 places respectively. This distribution was also to pursue a balance of power. The total number of spots between the two empires would be equal to the total number of spots for the champion. This way, they would not have to worry about each other scheming during the exploration process. The balance of the number of people could prevent many unnecessary conflict. Although the spots were set, it did not mean that anyone could go. The people who went to explore must be the young disciples that had participated in the friendly competition. This was especially true for the sect masters and palace masters of the various major forces. Those who had explored it once and obtained benefits from it were even more reluctant to go. This exploration opportunity could only be given to young people. And if the various sects and schools wanted to send their big shots, they would have to negotiate with the three nations and reach an agreement. If any country did not agree, the giants would not be allowed to participate in the exploration. With such strict restrictions, it was apparent that the three Eastern empires cared greatly about the exploration of this endless Eastern Sea. They had almost reached the stage of being calculative and fighting for every inch of land. Zhuobuchuan's words had caused these disciples to fall into deep thought. Wei Yi was the first one to raise his head and said seriously, "Teacher, since this is the rule passed down from generation to generation in the Stargaze Palace, being disciples of the palace, of course we should follow the footsteps of our ancestors and do our best. Regardless of the future of the exploration of the endless Eastern Sea, I, Wei Yi, will do my best until the day I die." When the other disciples heard Wei Yi's words, their blood also boiled. "Yes, we are willing to follow your footsteps and not lose the dignity of the Stargaze Palace." Qin Wushuang naturally had no fear in the face of such major issues. He was not a person who was afraid of challenges. On the contrary, he was a person who was afraid of no challenges. Since this endless Eastern Sea was this interesting, what reason would there be to not try it? Although the success rate of exploring the endless Eastern Sea was low, it still existed, right? At least, his teacher's generation had succeeded once. As long as it was not a certain death situation and there was a trace of life, Qin Wushuang felt that it was worth taking the risk. The reward was always proportional to the effort. When he saw the head palace master and his teacher looking at him with a questioning look, Qin Wushuang laughed leisurely. Head palace master, teacher, I, Qin Wushuang, started from the humble class and each step was a narrow escape from death. and during the battle at the Green Jade Mountain, I even went to the gates of hell. Thus, I have already seen through life and death. One could even say that one should see through life and death from the beginning of the path of martial art. If one does not comprehend life and death, how could one comprehend the Tao from between life and death? I am fascinated by this endless Eastern Sea. I only hate that I do not have the chance. Tan Zhongqi laughed. Good, no wonder you are the disciple that I have chosen. You are extraordinary. Wu Shuang, with your words, I feel that your group of disciples are people with great fortune. Wei Yi, who has the natural spiritual roots, Qin Wushuang, who is a legendary martial artist, you are all people with great fortune. Thus, your group is also the generation that the 5 palace masters think highly of. In terms of overall strength and quality, they were the most outstanding generation in the last 100 years or even the last few hundred years. You must know that at your age, none of the 5 palace masters could match the stage of Wei Yi and Qin Wushuang. Thus, we have reason to look forward to this group. Tian Zhixing, the 5th palace master, also nodded. That's right. Initially, our group had good luck and our strength was outstanding. However, compared to this group, our overall strength is still somewhat lacking. Indeed, you young people have the hope to become the future pillars of the Stargaze Palace. If you return from the endless Eastern Sea, in less than 20 years, you will have a substantial leap. You will leave your peers far behind. These were the words from the experience of the 5 palace masters. Of course, no one would doubt it. Zhuobuchuan concluded. Okay, you already know the gains and losses. I believe that you also know that as the core disciples of the Stargaze Palace, as the participants of this competition, you are not only shouldering personal glory, but also the future of the sect and the fate of the great Luo Empire. I only have 8 words to encourage you: be down to earth and have a lofty aspiration. All the senior disciples bowed and accepted the order, replying with a nod. Okay, before the competition starts tomorrow, there will be a bet between the 3 empires. This bet was also an old rule of the 3 Eastern countries' friendly competition. The 3 major sects participating in the competition would all give out corresponding bet. This format is just like the gambling arena that you guys set up in the Myriad Elephant Valley. All bets will only go to the winner. Whether the bet is big or small, the 3 sects will discuss it at the last moment. Initially, at the friendly competition hosted by the Heavenly Lake Empire, the Stargaze Palace had never done well. Thus, we should not bet too much. However, today the situation is different. Thus, I discussed with the 2nd Palace Master and the 5th Palace Master. We consider that you young people have great potential and are worthy of the bet. Thus, tomorrow we will think of a way to raise the bet. At that time, it will be up to you whether you will throw away your money or return with a full load. The words of the head palace master made all the young people rub their fists and nod. And the next words of the head palace master made their blood boil even more. They were eager to give it a try. For the bet, if you can win the championship, we will give it all to you. Us old guys will not take a single cent. There was the so-called saying that under the generous rewards, there would be brave men. Naturally, such reward system would make the disciples more focused and motivated. Regardless, under the great meaning of fighting for the sect and the country, they would have the extra motivation to fight for themselves. And for sure, the bets that could be placed in the friendly competition would not be ordinary. Tan Zhongqi said with a smile. I believe that this extra motivation will make you guys work harder. Okay, let's not talk too much. The head palace master has already said everything he could. Personally, I will not speak too much. I only want to say that on the path of martial arts, miracles will appear. Usually, that opportunity will disappear in an instant. If you miss it once, perhaps it will not appear a second time in your lifetime. Tian Zhixing, the 5th palace master, also felt deeply touched. Yes, Initially, in my generation, there were also a few core disciples that refused to go to that endless eastern sea. In the end, the 5 of us were the only 5 people of our generation who survived. For the other disciples of the same generation, they either encountered different kinds of disasters or reached the end of their lifespan. Now, they are all sleeping at the altar of the Stargaze Palace. It's like Qin Wushuang had said, only by seeing through life and death can one comprehend the Tao between life and death. Initially, they were greedy for life and afraid of death. How could they have expected that in 10 or 100 years after their death, it was us who were thought to be dead that made it to the end? Tian Zhixing's tone was filled with emotion. That was because he knew. Among the disciples of his generation, Tian Zhixing's talent could not even rank in the top 5. He could barely make it to the top 10. And he had participated in that exploration of the endless eastern sea without hesitation. He had also become one of the last 5 people that had survived. Thus, he had gained his current position as the 5th palace master and the thousands of disciples under him. This was the opportunity, this was the arrangement of fate. The words of the 5th palace master had spoken from a negative perspective. Life and death had their own destiny. For the path of martial arts, only by grabbing the opportunity and not missing it would be the right path. Today, if they had gone to that endless eastern sea, they could have kept their lives. However, who could predict when they would meet a powerful opponent tomorrow and die in the wilderness? With this lecture, this group of core disciples of the Stargaze Palace seemed to have grown up overnight. Responsibility, this concept had allowed them to understand a lot and become much more mature. Finally, they knew how much the Stargaze Palace had sacrificed and contributed to the great Luo Empire for thousands of years as the authoritative existence. Early in the morning of the second day, all the participants and non-participants gathered together under the leadership of the seniors. The Archaic Mysteries sect, the Stargaze Palace, and the Dragon and Tiger sect had each sent 3 heads. And without a doubt, all 24 semi-final participants had come from these 3 sections. This was authority, this was a monopoly. However, this monopoly, this authority was noble and truly existed for the benefit of the country. Shi Chenglong, the head of the Dragon and Tiger sect, was the first to speak. Everyone, the same old rules. Before the competition starts, let's make a bet to encourage the young people. Shi Chenglong looked at Gao Yu with a smile. Head Gao, you are the host, for sure you will make an extraordinary bet. What kind of bet would you like to make? In fact, this bet was an act of robbing the poor and giving to the rich. In the end, the 2nd and 3rd place bets would be placed at the innermost part of the championship. Thus, the agreement of this bet was extremely subtle. Whichever side was stingy with the bet, it would mean that they did not have confidence in this friendly competition. If they were scared before the battle, it would be a great blow to their morale. On the other hand, Zhuo Buchuan was suspicious. The Archaic Mysteries sect had always come out with no heads. How come there were 3 of them this time? As for the other 2, where did they go? He didn't know that the 3rd and 4th heads of the Archaic Mysteries sect had gone to assist the law enforcement group of the Red Dragon Empire to capture people. They wanted to curry favor with the Red Dragon Empire and carry out their evil schemes. P.S. It's really cold today. I'm shivering while writing and my fingers are numb. Today, I'm going to be lazy and only write 3 chapters. Let me enjoy the bed, hug my wife, and play with my son. Yes, thank you guys. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com to read more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 290. Inwardly, Gao Yu was furious. How could he not see through it? Although each of the 3 empires had 8 people entering the semifinals, it was clear that the current Dragon and Tiger sect and the Stargaze Palace had a much higher chance of winning than the Archaic Mysteries sect. Apparently, Shi Chenglong was provoking him because he was confident that the dragon and tiger sect would win. Thus, he was being generous and made Gao Yu feel embarrassed to bet too low. Initially, Zhuobuchuan had planned to speak. However, hearing Shi Chenglong's words, he did not need to speak. From Shi Chenglong's tone, it seemed that he was determined to win. Then, the Stargaze Palace would not need to show off too much. After all, in the previous friendly competition held at the Heavenly Lake Empire, the Stargaze Palace had not achieved an ideal result. If they took the initiative now, they would appear stiff. It would be more reasonable to let the dragon and tiger sect burn this fire. Of course, Gao Yu would not fall for this trick as he smiled lightly. Being the host, the Archaic Mysteries sect has always advocated peace. This bet is only a symbolic thing. If we care too much about the bet, we will lose the friendship between the three empires. You must know that friendship comes first, competition comes second. Next, as if he was afraid that someone would steal the topic, he emphasized. This time, the Archaic Mysteries sect is hosting the friendly competition, and we do not want to carry the reputation of bullying the guests. Let's make this bet a little casual. The most important thing is to train the young people. The bet is secondary. I am sure you guys don't have any objections, right? Inwardly, Zhuobuchuan found it funny. In the past, this Gao Yu had always been a gambler and cared deeply about the bet. This time, he had changed his expression. Without a doubt, he was somewhat scared. Zhuobuchuan knew that Shi Chenglong would not agree, as he could not help but say, "Head Gao's words do make sense. Head Dragon Shi, what do you think?" Inwardly, Shi Chenglong was overjoyed when he saw that Zhuobuchuan was also keeping a low profile. Apparently, these two did not have enough confidence as they were making all sorts of excuses. The dragon and tiger sect needed to follow up their victory. Immediately, he laughed. If the bet is too small, it will lose some interest. Since all of you are so reserved, why don't I make a good start this time? I'll take out some stakes first, and you can decide if you agree or not. How about it? Instantly, he waved his hand and the subordinates of the dragon and tiger sect walked up with 4 trays. First item: Soaring Dragon Sword, Advanced Spiritual Weapon. It can increase the power of fire attribute attack. The second item was the Qilin Dragon Armor, which was also an advanced level armor. It had a strong defense against metal and ice attribute. The third item, Cloud and Water Talisman. When wearing this talisman, water would turn into clouds. Wading through water would be like walking on flat ground. It was a treasure that was beyond the spiritual martial force. Fourth item, 6-eared golden-eyed monkey, middle-ranked beast. It specializes in concealment, scouting, and ambushing. It can be tamed as a contracted beast. It was very rare. As soon as he took out these 4 goods, the higher-ups of the Archaic and the Stargaze Palace all drew in a breath of cold air. How could they not see that this was clearly a huge investment? Zhuobuchuan could not help but have a new understanding of this dragon and tiger sect. Inwardly, he thought, since the dragon and tiger sect has sacrificed so much, they should be full of confidence. In the past years, the Stargaze Palace did not lose out to the dragon and tiger sect. Currently, they had 2 middle-stage warriors and were all unparalleled young people. Should they not play with the dragon and tiger sect? Regardless of winning or losing, the Stargaze Palace could still afford to gamble with this little capital. If he lost, he would just treat it as paying tuition. And if he won, he would gain a lot. However, Gao Yu said with an expressionless face, "Head Shi, are these 4 goods the stakes you are offering?" Shi Chenglong nodded with a smile. "Yes, it's neither too high nor too low. It's just right. Any higher and it would be too much. Any lower and it would not be interesting. It would not show the demeanor of a major sect. Head Gao, could it be that you think these stakes are too high?" Indeed, compared to the previous years, these stakes were much higher. However, when Shi Chenglong said these words, Gao Yu could not help but feel somewhat embarrassed. Under everyone's eyes, if he were to retreat again and again, it would appear that the Archaic Mysteries sect did not have the slightest confidence. Instantly, he exchanged a glance with the other two heads, and those two nodded. Apparently, they meant that even if they had to bear the pain, they could not lose the face of the Archaic Mysteries sect that had been passed down for thousands of years. Zhuobuchuan observed secretly and saw the expression of Gao Yu and the others. When he saw that Gao Yu was still in a difficult situation, he spoke first. "Since Headshur is so generous, I must accompany you. For these stakes, the Stargaze Palace will accept them." Immediately, he discussed with Tan Zhongqi and Tian Jixing. In a moment, the Stargaze Palace presented the matching stake. There were also 4 treasures, and all of them were rare treasures. Zhuobuchuan laughed. "Head Dragon Shi, do you think these 4 treasures will match?" After Shi Chenglong looked at them, he laughed. "Head Palace Master Zhua has such spirit, of course we will match them." Good, now it's up to you, Head Gao." Gao Yu felt extremely pained. However, since Zhuobuchuan had already expressed his stance, if he continued to make excuses, the Archaic Mysteries sect would lose all face under the eyes of tens of thousands of people. Regardless of how pained he felt, he could only force himself to follow. In a moment, the Archaic Mysteries sect also presented their 4 stake. Similarly, it was a weapon and a set of armor. All of them were at the advanced stage. One of them was the Wind Walk Talisman. Wearing this talisman, one could travel 10,000 miles in a day. However, it could only be used 3 times. The last one was also a middle-stage spiritual beast. It was a burrowing mole. Although it had an ugly appearance, it was extremely cunning and had many uses. The Heavenly Lake Empire excelled at burrowing into the ground. Even the spiritual beasts excelled at burrowing into the ground. After the 3 parties had presented their stakes, they put them in one place and signed their bet. Then, everything was settled. Each party had 4 stakes. Besides the capital, it was equivalent to 8 stakes from the other 2 empires. It was enough to reward the 8 winners. When they saw these stakes, the disciples of the 3 sects were inwardly encouraged. Indeed, it would be a great gain if they could win such treasures. After the stakes were settled, the semi-final officially began. In total, the semi-final was divided into 2 stages. In fact, the first stage was just a warm-up and would not have much effect on the battle. The most crucial part was the second stage of the martial arts competition. The results of the preliminary round had already been reset to 0 and would not have any effect. Thus, the points for the semi-final would start from 0. In the first stage there were only 2 events. Both of them were group events. The first event was a competition of fighting strength, leg strength, and scouting ability. However, there was only one event. They would place a beginner stage spiritual beast in a training ground that was 50 miles away from 300 miles away. The contestants from the 3 parties would go out one by one. It was like a relay race. The first contestant would start from the time they set off until they returned. Until all 8 contestants finished, the total score would be calculated. If one of the contestants did not finish within 24 hours, he would be considered to have failed. The contestants behind him could only start 24 hours after he set off. The contestant who failed would have 10 points deducted. If he succeeded, he would have 10 points added. Similarly, if a contestant could finish within 12 hours, he would have 10 points added on top of 10 points. In the end, the one who took the least amount of time would be the winner. He would have 20 points added. The runner-up would have 10 points added. The last place would not have any points added. When the total score was added together, it would be the total score of the event. 300 miles, one round trip would be 600 miles, and they would have to hunt a beginner stage spiritual beast within 50 miles. Indeed, it was a moderate challenge. Of course, those who could enter the semi-final were all elite warriors from their respective sections. Thus, they were full of confidence for this competition. For such competition, they could only proceed in order. Which sect would go first and which would go last would be decided by drawing lot. When the result of the drawing came out, the Stargaze Palace was ranked last. It was a good draw and a good start. The Dragon and Tiger sect was ranked first. Although Shi Chenglong had drawn first, he did not sigh as he laughed. A good start to the end. Kids, you are the first to compete, do you feel any pressure? No. Each of those young people of the Dragon and Tiger sect was full of confidence and did not feel any pressure. Qin Wushuang observed them secretly and saw that the two strongest people of the Dragon and Tiger sect were elite warriors at the middle stage. He already understood that for this friendly competition, the Archaic Mysteries sect was destined to be a supporting role. Since they were the host, the competition for the championship would become a competition between the Dragon and Tiger sect and the Stargaze Palace. While Qin Wushuang was observing, suddenly, he felt a pair of eyes sizing him up from the side. From the corner of his eyes, he saw a cold gaze coming from the Archaic Mysteries sect. It came from a tall young man who stood out like a crane in a flock of chickens. This person was dressed in a long white robe. He was the number one of the young generation of the Archaic Mysteries sect, Luo Guiyun. After realizing this point, Qin Wushuang did not evade his gaze. Instead, he looked straight at this Luo Guiyun. He wanted to know whether it was this person who had ambushed him at the cliff. Luo Guiyun showed an unfathomable expression, and a trace of a strange smile hung on the corner of his mouth. However, Qin Wushuang did not know what he was thinking about. This person was a powerful enemy. After a moment of observation, Qin Wushuang understood. Indeed, the stage of this Luo Guiyun was slightly higher than senior brother Wei Yi. It seemed that the Archaic Mysteries sect did have some skills. Thinking back, he felt somewhat fortunate. If that devil boy had not died, it would have been difficult for the Stargaze Palace to stand out in this friendly competition. While he was thinking, the Dragon and Tiger sect had already arranged the order. The first candidate had already left and was heading towards the destination 300 miles away. At the same time, the Stargaze Palace, the Archaic Mysteries sect and the Dragon and Tiger sect had each sent a leader to lead the way. They would go to the testing site 300 miles away to prevent any mistakes along the way. For those who had entered the upper sky realm, it would be easy for them to travel 1,000 miles in a day. Thus, these 600 miles were actually not that difficult of a challenge. The difficult part was that they would need some twists and turns to kill that initial stage spiritual beast. The test would depend on how long each of them had taken to kill that spiritual beast and how much spiritual qi they had used to kill the beast. Would it be enough to support their return journey of 300 miles? The 8 candidates from the Stargaze Palace started to exchange their experiences. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 291. According to Qin Wushuang's estimation, if one was at the initial stage, it would take about half a day for a round trip of 600 miles. Thus, the competition between initial stage warriors would mainly depend on their efficiency in killing the spiritual beast. Inwardly, Qin Wushuang already had some initial thoughts. Yet, he did not speak them out. Now, at the competition site, he did not want to say anything in case the walls had ears. After all, the disciples of the Stargaze Palace were the last to depart. It would take at least 10 days to half a month for those 2 houses to finish their competition. During this time, they could make some necessary preparations. Indeed, as Qin Wushuang had expected, the first participant of the Dragon and Tiger sect still had not returned by dusk. Of course, it was still early before the 24-hour time limit. Tan Zhongqi walked over and said to the disciples of the Stargaze Palace, "It's already late, you guys can go back to the inn first. You can come here every day. Since it's not your competition time, You don't have to go out. Zhuobuchuan also nodded from afar and motioned for Tan Zhongqi to take them back. These disciples were not willing to waste time here as they followed Tan Zhongqi back to the inn. When they returned to the inn, Tan Zhongqi gathered the 8 participating disciples. You all know the content of the first relay event. Although the content and rules were very fair, there were still some things that could be done. Of course, according to the rules, those spiritual boots or talismans that increase your walking speed cannot be used. Thus, for these 600 miles, it's all about raw power. However, you all know that in fact, these 600 miles are not the main point of the competition. The main point is to kill that combat spiritual beast. There are loopholes in how to capture it, how to kill it, and how to investigate. Teacher, how do we take advantage of these loopholes? Zhou Fu was the first one to ask. Zhuobuchuan laughed. First, it's about how to investigate that combat spiritual beast. The Dragon and Tiger sect specializes in training spiritual beasts and tracking and investigation. Thus, for sure, many of their disciples have contracted spiritual beasts to help them investigate and kill that combat spiritual beast. Of course, Wei Yi and Wushuang, it doesn't matter. It's because your stage is higher than that initial stage combat spiritual beast. In that 50-mile area, it's as easy as blowing off dust to kill a combat spiritual beast. Therefore, the goal of the two of you is not only to obtain the basic 10 points, but also to return within 12 hours and obtain the reward of 10 points. Wei Yi and Qin Wushuang both nodded, indicating that it was not a big problem. According to their estimations, it wouldn't be too difficult to complete all of this within 12 hours. Therefore, he was determined to get this reward point. If you use it, it will more or less have some effect. He smiled and handed over a small bottle. He whispered a few words in Huang Chaoyang's ear with a strange smile on his face. After Huang Chaoyang heard it, he laughed. Thank you for your gift, Senior Zhao. Zhou Fu saw the two of them acting suspiciously and couldn't help but ask curiously, Junior Zhao, what strange thing is it? Why are you hiding it so tightly? Zhao Muji laughed. It's a kind of drug that won't catch anyone's eye. When I was cultivating in the mountains, I encountered a strange flower and almost fainted from the fragrance of the flower. Therefore, I collected some pollen and refined this drug. I have never used it before. This time, I gave it to Junior Huang. Even my family's belongings were lost. Tan Zhongqi laughed. Zhao Muji, your luck can't be that good, right? You encountered the illusory spirit flower? Isn't that flower completely blue with a furry center and the entire flower body like a fish's mouth? Second martial uncle, how did you know? Zhao Muji was shocked. It really is the illusory spirit flower. Zhao Muji, you're really lucky that you didn't faint from the drug. This thing is rare in the Ling Shao mountain range. It's hard to find in a few decades and you actually encountered it. Usually, only one flower will bloom. However, if you use this one flower well, it would not be a problem to drug hundreds of spiritual martial force warriors. Of course, to advanced stage warriors, this flower would not have much use. Hearing Tan Zhongqi's words, Zhao Muji was overjoyed at the unexpected good news. Martial uncle, this way, in the future, if I meet an opponent that I cannot beat, I can throw some out and turn the tide. That would depend on how well you use it. As soon as you throw it out, although the enemy is drugged, if you get too close, you will also be affected. Besides, in a battle between elite warriors, how could you have the chance to take out the bottle and throw it out? Even if you had the chance, how could the opponent not react when you suddenly took out the bottle? Thus, this thing might not be useful in actual battle. Zhao Muji nodded with regret. That's right. On that day when I was fighting with Devil Boy, I wanted to use this thing a few times. However, I could not split my hands and feet. Suddenly, Qin Wushuang said, Senior brother Zhao, if you must use this thing, I think it's better to hide it in the weapon. Have you fixed your magistrate brush? If you can hide it in the mechanism, Once you activate it, the pollen will shoot out and catch the enemy off guard. As soon as he said these words, everyone else sized Qin Wushuang up with a strange look. Tan Zhongqi even smiled bitterly. Zhou Fu said even more exaggeratedly, "Junior brother Wushuang, I always thought that you were an honest person. I didn't expect that you would have so many wicked ideas." Although the other disciples did not agree, they had a smile on their face. Apparently, each of them felt that Zhou Fu's words were reasonable. Zhao Muji laughed heartily. "Junior brother Qin, you've really awakened me from my stupor." "Good, that's great. I'll study it now. If this exclusive technique of mine can be implemented, junior brother Qin, you'll be my guide." Tan Zhongqi said seriously, "Zhao Muji, it doesn't matter if you can figure it out. However, I must warn you beforehand, you are not allowed to use it in this friendly competition. Or else, you will be breaking the rules. In our human countries, using such drugs is not something that should be done openly." Zhao Muji said, "Of course. I am using it to protect myself at a crucial moment." Qin Wushuang could not help but laugh. In the ancient martial arts world of his former world, many small fries used such methods. At most, it was a little trick. How come it had become a wicked idea when it came to them? Tan Zhongqi opened his mouth again. "Since you all have methods to deal with that spiritual beast, then the only problem is how to locate that spiritual beast. If you are lucky and encounter it as soon as you enter, it would be a good thing. However, such luck is unlikely. The alertness of a combat spiritual beast is still very high." Wei Yi nodded. "Senior Uncle Tan is right. How to locate it is indeed the first problem." The others also nodded to show their agreement. On the other hand, Qin Wushuang smiled lightly. "Speaking of locating it, I do have some methods. However, I will need your help." Zhou Fu chuckled. "You really do have a lot of wicked ideas. Tell us, what methods do you have?" Tan Zhongqi was also looking forward to it. He smiled and looked at Qin Wushuang, waiting for him to speak. Qin Wushuang smiled. "Senior sister, this is not a wicked idea, but a serious method. Do you still remember that at the start of the core disciple ranking competition, I did not ask for a reward, but a spiritual beast?" Yes. So what? Junior brother Qin, don't keep us in suspense." Zhou Fu urged. "Yes, I want a spiritual beast so that I can master some methods of taming beasts, as well as my experience in communicating with spiritual beasts. After such a long time of exploration, I have finally grasped some method. If all of you can remember the beast language that I have taught you, you can definitely lure that combat spiritual beast out." Qin Wushuang's tone had a trace of confidence. Naturally, he would not reveal the secret of the catalog of beast language. However, teaching them a few simple communication methods was not a problem. This way, it would be much easier to lure that combat spiritual beast out. As soon as he said this, Tan Zhongqi's face was overjoyed. "Wushuang, I did not expect you to be so versatile. You even know about the beast language?" To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 292. The other disciples were also somewhat surprised. They never thought that Qin Wushuang had such skill. Qin Wushuang said humbly, "Only, I was bored and had a sudden idea. I like to think I've made a fool of myself." Tan Zhongqi waved his hand. "No, I meant what I said from the bottom of my heart. I'm not making a fool of myself. In the world of martial arts, one more skill means one more defensive method. It's not a bad thing." Wei Yi also gave a long sigh. "Indeed, a capable person can do anything. Junior brother Qin, it's hard for me not to be impressed by you. You always bring endless surprises. Just this point alone is enough to make all the young generation of the 3 Eastern empires blush with shame." Wei Yi spoke from the bottom of his heart and did not feel the slightest bit of dissatisfaction. In the past, he could not let go of his competitive spirit. After Zhuo Buchuan's guidance, plus the epiphany he gained from the battle with Qin Wushuang, the current Wei Yi's mindset had increased greatly. Thus, he was only surprised by Qin Wushuang's performance and did not feel the slightest bit of resistance. He also realized that for the Stargaze Palace to prosper, they needed 100 flowers to bloom and not one to outshine the others. Qin Wushuang opened his mouth to speak. Everyone, without further ado, let's start practicing some basic beast language. Wu gu la, ha chan I bo wa, chun si yuen. Wu gu la, ha chan I bo wa, chun si yuen. Like students, these disciples started to learn the language from their teacher. With Qin Wushuang's current level of beast language, it was more than enough to teach these laymen. And to lure out that initial stage spiritual beast, they only needed to grasp some basic phrases. After 3 or 5 days, these young disciples had grasped some basic phrases. They were extremely proficient in using them. Only, with the temperament of young people, after they had learned these few phrases of beast language, they started to act frivolous when they met each other. They no longer used human language to greet each other. Instead, they started to say Wu gu la, ha chun I bo wa, chun si yuen. It had become the world of beasts. Tan Zhongqi also felt gratified when he saw the disciples of the Stargaze Palace enjoying themselves. The friendly competition between the 3 countries was indeed able to unite people and form a cohesive force. After he had finished teaching these phrases, to be on the safe side, Qin Wushuang taught everyone some of his experiences when communicating with the white sable. Then, he said, "Senior brothers, although this white sable is only an ordinary initial stage spiritual beast, it understands human nature and excels at scouting. Now, I will teach you some ways to communicate with it. Each of us will set off with the white marten. It can also help you to lock onto the location of that combat spiritual beast in the shortest amount of time." Of course, everyone, please follow closely. Don't let it be swallowed by the battle spirit beasts. Qin Wushuang took out the white mink that looked like a fluffy ball of meat. When everyone saw it, they were very happy. Zhou Fu stretched out her hand to touch it, but Qin Wushuang quickly said, "Senior apprentice sister, don't be impatient. You should first master the skills and language to communicate with it. It won't be too late to play with it later." He taught them some basic communication methods, and also taught them a few phrases and hand gestures. Everyone practiced many times before they finally mastered it completely. Qin Wushuang caressed that white marten and gave it some simple instructions in beast language. He told it that these were his best colleagues and disciples of the Stargaze Palace. He asked the white marten to cooperate with them. After he had finished instructing, he gave the white marten to Zhou Fu. As soon as Zhou Fu whistled, she threw out a few words in beast language. That white marten was also very adorable as it crawled into Zhou Fu's embrace. Sometimes it would jump onto Zhou Fu's shoulder. Without stepping on it, it made all kinds of weird hand gestures and expressions as if it was very familiar with them. When he saw this scene, Qin Wushuang could not help but laugh. Initially, he was worried that the white marten would be shy with strangers. Unexpectedly, this little thing was familiar with everyone and knew how to make people like it. Tan Zhongqi laughed. "Wushuang, this time, you have helped us a lot. With these methods, it will be much easier. You guys, you must take good care of this white marten and not let anything happen to it." Those disciples all nodded. "We understand." After making these preparations, the Stargaze Palace was fully armed for the first project and had made some preparations. Inwardly, Tan Zhongqi was looking forward to it. If that were the case, perhaps Zhou Fu and Zhao Muji, the 2 more outstanding initial stage warriors, could complete it in 12 hours. Of course, Tan Zhongqi did not say it out loud. He did not want to give the young people too much pressure. After 6 days, the competition of the Dragon and Tiger sect finally finished. As expected, The two elite warriors of the middle stage of the Dragon and Tiger sect had finished within 12 hours. Besides the basic 10 points, each of them also received 10 bonus points. It was equivalent to each of them getting 20 points. The other 6 people also passed smoothly. This way, 6 of them got 10 points and 2 got 20 points. In total, they had obtained 100 points. Indeed, this score was the most perfect performance. It could even be described as watertight. After all, it would be too difficult to finish in 12 hours if one was not at the middle stage. Since none of the 6 initial stage warriors had failed, it could be considered a perfect result. Of course, such result would give the archaic sect a lot of pressure. On the other hand, the disciples of the Stargaze Palace were strangely calm. It was because they already had a card up their sleeve for this first event. They had planned it perfectly. It would depend on their performance on the spot. Among the 8 participants of the archaic sect, only Luo Guiyun was at the middle stage. This way, most likely, they would be at a disadvantage in terms of the bonus points. Indeed, after 6 or 7 days, the difference in the number of middle-stage warriors made the archaic sect feel a fatal difference. Among the 8 participants of the archaic sect, Luo Guiyun did not disappoint as he had succeeded in 12 hours. However, for the other 7 people, one of them had made a mistake and did not finish within 12 hours. Not only did he not receive the 10 basic points, he would have his points deducted. This way, after the first event, the archaic sect had only received 70 points. After the first event, they were 30 points behind the Dragon and Tiger sect. This difference could be said to have infuriated the entire Tianji sect. The entire Heavenly Lake Empire felt that the future of this competition was bleak. That disciple who had dragged them down was even more depressed as he felt endless pressure. Both Gao Yu and Bai Gujing felt helpless. Indeed, with the death of Devil Boy, they had fallen into a disadvantage in all aspects. Their plans had all been ruined. If Devil Boy had not died, for sure, they would have gotten 100 points in this first event. They would not have been able to leave. But now, not only did he lose 20 points from Devil Boy, but he also had 10 points deducted from him. After some calculations, they had lost 30 points. Although there were still many semi-final events, they had fallen behind by so much in the first event. Besides, there would be the first and second place prizes after the first event. From the looks of it, it had nothing to do with the archaic sect. This way, the difference would continue to increase. Inwardly, Bai Gujing gritted his teeth and resented the death of Devil Boy even more. When it was the Stargaze Palace's turn, Deng Bohu went first, then it was Miao Zhongxia, Huang Chaoyang, Lu Shaonan. Deng Bohu and Miao Zhongxia did not have any suspense. Although they did not make it back in 12 hours, they still made it back safely within 18 hours. Huang Chaoyang was in a slightly more dangerous situation, but he managed to return before the time limit was up. Lu Xiaonan's result was much better than Huang Chaoyang's. After 3 or 4 days of the competition, it was finally Zhao Muji's turn. When Zhao Muji went, he appeared extremely enchanting. All people from the Dragon and Tiger sect and the archaic sect were dumbstruck. He had made it back before the 12 hours were up. This way, Gao Yu and Bai Gujing from the archaic sect were greatly shocked. Shi Chenglong from the Dragon and Tiger sect was also dumbstruck. From his information, this Zhao Muji should only be ranked 4th in the Stargaze Palace. This person had made it back in 12 hours? Vividly, Shi Chenglong felt a sense of uneasiness. He glanced at Zhuo Buchuan and saw that this Zhuo Buchuan had an indifferent expression. He could not see any emotions from his expression. Inwardly, Shi Chenglong whispered, "This old Zhuo has always been a shrewd person. Could it be that this guy is playing the pig to eat the tiger?" However, Shi Chenglong did not believe it. He would rather believe that it was an accident. He comforted himself. Perhaps when this Zhao Muji went in, he saw that combat spiritual beast and killed it. He had rushed back with all his might to get this result. Although he thought this way, inwardly, he still felt somewhat uncomfortable. Regardless, the sudden appearance of this Zhaomuji had caused trouble to the dragon and tiger sect's plan to win the first event. Initially, they thought they would win the championship for sure. Now, a huge question mark had been placed on their heads. After all, Shi Chenglong was a grandmaster. Although his plan had been disrupted by Zhaomuji, he was still calm and did not worry too much about personal gains and losses. However, when Zhou Fu had returned with an astonishing result, Shi Chenglong was instantly dumbstruck. He realized that he had boarded Zhuo Buchuan's pirate ship. Without a word, this Stargaze Palace had set up a giant trap and made the dragon and tiger sect jump into it. Naturally, the archaic sect was even more dumbstruck. They could not believe that the Stargaze Palace that had never performed well in the Heavenly Lake Empire had become so famous this time. Gao Yu could not help but mock. Head Palace Master Zhuo, such a good scheme. You have hidden yourself well by playing the pig to eat the tiger. Shi Chenglong also mocked with a bitter smile. Old Zhuo, how come I feel that I have boarded your pirate ship? Zhuo Buchuan said with a smile. You too, this is luck in the lottery. The Stargaze Palace was the last to enter the competition, so we had prepared well. Although he had said it this way, the result was obvious. When it was Qin Wushuang and Wei Yi's turn, they had finished the competition with irresistible force. Of course, they had finished within 12 hours. This way, the result of the Stargaze Palace's first event had become extremely enchanting. Among the 8 people who had participated, 4 of them had received extra points. The total result was 120 points. Plus the 20 points awarded to the champion, they had snatched 140 points in the first event. Indeed, this result had set a new record in the friendly competition between the 3 empires. The Dragon and Tiger sect had obtained 100 points. The second place had received 10 points and a total of 110 points. Unfortunately, the Archaic Mysteries sect was at the bottom and still had 70 points. Both Gao Yu and Bai Gujing were speechless. In just one round, their result had dropped so much. They had only gotten half of the Stargaze Palaces. Without a doubt, as their home team, this was a humiliating result. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com to read more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 293. In the first round of the semifinals, there were 2 events. After the end of the first event, the Stargaze Palace was in the lead. And just from the content of this round, their lead was obvious. Apparently, the Archaic Mysteries sect had realized that regardless of anything, they would be accompanying the Crown Prince in this friendly competition. Despite this fact, they had no way to retreat and could only continue to hold on. Or else, it would be a big deal to lose face and the dignity of the Archaic Mysteries sect. However, the entire Dragon and Tiger sect became even more nervous. They realized that this time, their formidable enemy was not the host, the Archaic Mysteries sect, but the Stargaze Palace that had always kept a low profile. With a goal in mind, these disciples of the Dragon and Tiger sect rubbed their fists and got ready to go all out against the Stargaze Palace. Although they were 30 points behind the Stargaze Palace, they were not discouraged. They felt that they still had a lot of hope in the following competition. The second event in the first round tested endurance and defensive ability. This time, all the participants from the 3 countries were put into an 8 diagrams formation. Once this 8 diagrams formation was activated, it would unleash all kinds of attack. This was a huge test for each country's contestant. First, it tested their defensive ability. Next, it would be a great test of endurance. For this second event, 3 groups of people would perform it at the same time. The 8 diagrams formation was also set up beforehand. The 3 heads had inspected it personally and watched it live. There would not be any unfair situations. This formation needed to be set up and inspected temporarily. Thus, after the end of the first event, there were 3 days of rest. In these 3 days, all sects were studying how to deal with this 8 diagrams formation. This was a group event. All 8 disciples would enter the formation. Each person would pass the exam if they could last for 2 hours. Each person would get 10 points. For this event, there were no points for individual performance. It was a group event. In the end, the first and second place would still get 20 points and 10 points. The one at the bottom would still get no points. If it was a tie, the highest ranking person would get the points. If it was a tie between the top 2, the champion would get 20 points. If it was a tie between the bottom 2, the second place would get 10 points. Of course, according to historical experience, the probability of a tie was not high. In this event, theoretically, the highest score one could get was 80 points. Plus the 20 points from the champion, the highest score one could get was 100 points. Of course, in history, the probability of someone scoring full marks was very low. Tan Zhongqi said, "The attacking power of this 8 trigrams formation will continuously increase. Therefore, it will not be easy to hold on for 2 hours. Therefore, this test was very important for the team. Wei Yi and Wu Shuang, since you two are middle-stage warriors, you must shoulder more responsibilities. In this round, the performance of the 2 of you will determine the results of the entire project." Wei Yi nodded. "We will do our best." However, Qin Wushuang said, "Shizhuan, since this is a test for groups, why don't we use formations?" Tan Zhongqi sighed. "Formations? Our 3 Eastern countries don't have much research on formations. The most important thing is that formations are suitable for fighting against humans. However, when facing a formation, its attack power is completely different from a human's attack. There are no rules to follow. Thus, normal formations aren't very effective against the 8 trigrams formation. Attending to one thing and losing sight of the other, sometimes you end up in a mess." Qin Wushuang was speechless. He also found it strange. In the year he had spent at the Stargaze Palace, he had rarely seen the Stargaze Palace practice formations. No matter how he thought about it, he could not figure it out. In the end, he concluded that it should be related to the culture of this world. In this world, individual heroism was emphasized. The pursuit of martial arts was more important than anything else. Relatively speaking, they were not interested in the research of cooperation. After all, the path of martial arts was as vast as the sea. Regardless of how powerful your cooperation was, it would be useless when you met a much stronger opponent. Thus, this world emphasized on the pursuit of individual martial arts. Only Qin Wushuang felt that this was a misunderstanding. After a moment of thinking, he gathered his courage and said, "Teacher, on that day at the entrance of that cave in the Green Jade Mountain, I saw a formation map and found it extremely interesting. That formation seemed to be miraculous. Now, when I think about it, I feel that once that formation map was developed, it would be extremely suitable to deal with the attacks of this 8 trigrams formation." In fact, Qin Wushuang had also experienced a difficult choice. Naturally, the formation he was talking about was not the one he had seen at the cave in the Green Jade Mountain. Instead, it was a powerful formation he had mastered in his former world, the Big Dipper Sky Gang formation. The creativity of this formation came from the Big Dipper stars in the endless starry sky. The so-called Big Dipper stars were the Dubhe, Merak, Phecda, Megrez, Alioth, Mizar, and Alkaid. Because the shape of these 7 stars was somewhat special, it was easy to associate it with the shape of a dipper. Among them, the Dubhe, Merak, Phecda, and Megrez formed the body of the dipper and was called the head. The Alioth, Mizar, and Alkaid formed the handle and was called the dipper. To use it in the formation, it would require 7 elite warriors of similar strength to form the formation according to the Big Dipper. Each of them would occupy a position and form the formation. This formation could be big or small. When fighting with others, it could transform into a giant formation. It would be extremely powerful for group or individual attack, and within a small area, it could become a defensive formation. Each person only needed to extend a hand and hold the shoulder of the person next to them. Then, they could combine the power of the 7 people into one. Could be released by any one of them. Thus, one of the mysteries of this formation was to gather power. And the core of this formation was located at 2 places. One was at the Migres position of the dipper body, and the other was at the Alioth position of the handle. These 2 positions were the 2 core areas of this formation. They were very important and required 2 experts who were stronger than the others to oversee them. Among the disciples of the Stargaze Palace, naturally, it would be Wei Yi and Qin Wushuang. Hearing Qin Wushuang's serious tone, Tan Zhongqi said, "Wushuang, what kind of formation is it, tell me?" Qin Wushuang did not speak. Instead, he took out a brush and ink and started to draw on the spot. When he had drawn the Big Dipper Sky Gang formation, Tan Zhongqi's expression changed slightly. After Qin Wushuang had explained it to him, Tan Zhongqi was even more moved. Inwardly, he could not help but feel surprised as he said seriously, "Wushuang, your formation is marvelous. Did that cave of the Green Jade Mountain have such a record?" Qin Wushuang said, "I only had the chance to see this formation when I had disguised myself when I had just entered. It was at the top of that natural pit. Under the light, it was extremely eye-catching. Thus, I saw it immediately. I memorized it, and after thinking about it, I felt that this formation was extraordinary." Tan Zhongqi gave a long sigh. "It's not just extraordinary, it has surpassed any formation inheritance from any of the 3 Eastern empires. Wushuang, for sure, that cave of the Green Jade Mountain must be a miraculous place. Unfortunately, it's now in ruins." Although Tan Zhongqi was wise, he would never have thought that the Green Jade Mountain was only the first loop of the formation, and that 7 deadly arrays formation was linked to each other. Thus, he could not imagine that there would be other fortuitous opportunities after the transportation circle at the Green Jade Mountain. Hearing Qin Wushuang's words, Tan Zhongqi felt rather regretful. It's too bad that the Stargaze Palace did not discover that cave of the Green Jade Mountain. I guess that there must be other fortuitous opportunities in that cave. A formation is already so profound, that cave. Too bad. The others also sighed endlessly. However, after all, Tan Zhongqi was a senior and was rather open-minded. After a moment of sighing, he understood and said, "Wushuang, since you are able to have so many fortuitous opportunities, it means that you are a person with great fortune. In the future, on the path of training, for sure, there will be some special fortuitous opportunities for you. This is your natural fortune. Perhaps the exploration of the endless Eastern Sea will fall on your head. Perhaps you will reap great rewards. All right, without further ado, let's practice this miraculous formation. By the way, Wushuang, what is the name of this formation?" Qin Wushuang laughed. "Next to this formation map, there is the name of this formation. If I remember correctly, it should be called the Big Dipper Sky Gang formation." Tan Zhongqi nodded. "Good name, it corresponds to the 7 stars of the Big Dipper. The name is very appropriate. For this formation, if some mediocre people were to set it up, they would not be able to grasp it this quickly. However, each of these 8 people were the pride of the Stargaze Palace. They had exceptional talent and high comprehension. Thus, with Qin Wushuang's explanation, everyone had already understood 70 to 80% of it. Plus, with Tan Zhongqi, an elite warrior teaching them from the side, they had discovered many of the profound mysteries of the formation that Qin Wushuang had not grasped before. This way, after Tan Zhongqi had taught this Big Dipper Sky Gang formation, he had unearthed more potential. In total, there were 8 people, yet this formation only needed 7. For the remaining person, it was a troublesome matter to arrange. Initially, Qin Wushuang had planned to let him and Wei Yi oversee the two major core positions. However, Tan Zhongqi felt that Wei Yi and Zhou Fu could take care of these core positions, and Qin Wushuang would roam around the outside to take care of them. In case something happened to one of them, Qin Wushuang would be more familiar with this formation and could step in at any time. And that person who had a problem could retreat from the formation. If no one had a problem with Qin Wushuang's strength, even if he was roaming outside the formation, he could still deal with the attacks from that 8 diagrams formation. Hearing Tan Zhongqi's explanation, Qin Wushuang also felt it made sense. Instantly, he nodded. Since you have arranged it well, of course I will listen. Tan Zhongqi laughed. Okay, you guys should familiarize yourselves with this formation and try to form a tacit understanding in these 3 days. We still need to dig deeper into this formation. If we develop it well, we can use it as a long-term protection formation for the Stargaze Palace. Wushuang, you have made a great contribution. Qin Wushuang said humbly. It was just a coincidence. If senior brother Wei Yi had gone that day, this contribution would have belonged to him. Tan Zhongqi waved his hand. Okay, you guys continue to train, I will think about it. However, Qin Wushuang didn't know that when he had generously offered this Big Dipper Sky Gang formation, it had truly become an immortal existence for the Stargaze Palace. It would become the protection formation for generations to come and become a legend. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com, support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 294. Among the 3 tall towers, the first floor of each tower was the location of the 8 trigrams formation. Surrounding this tall tower, there were spiritual qi sources. After setting it up, it could launch different types of attacks. Of course, these attacks were controlled within the middle stage. It would be impossible for attacks at the advanced stage to appear. Or else, with the strength of these young people, they would not be able to defend against it. After 3 days of adaptation, Wei Yi and the other 7 people had already familiarized themselves with the essence of the Big Dipper Sky Gang formation. They were also familiar with each other's cooperation. During this time, Zhuobuchuan had been busy with work and did not have the time to observe this group of young people. Thus, after receiving Tan Zhongqi's information, he was also somewhat excited. He wanted to see the effects of this miraculous formation. After they had walked into the formation, Qin Wushuang said, Senior brothers, let's start setting up the formation. Remember, for this formation, you must cooperate smoothly and not advance recklessly. However, you must also make your moves quickly. It's because the attacks of this 8 trigrams formation may shoot out attacks from several directions at the same time. Thus, it's important for everyone to cooperate well. The other 7 people nodded and started to set up the formation according to the Big Dipper. As promised, the 2 most important positions were guarded by Wei Yi and Zhou Fu, and Qin Wushuang would wander around to take care of them. In case something went wrong, he could quickly make up for it. Following a long whistle, the 3 8 trigrams formations were activated at the same time. Inside the formation, a giant 8 trigrams was drawn. The positions of the 8 trigrams were either bright or dark, or yin or yang. It was filled with strange movements of spiritual qi. Wei Yi shouted in a low voice, Don't get distracted, focus on setting up the formation. Qin Wushuang stood on the outside and also said, Everyone, ignore my presence. I will appear when you need me. However, you must forget that I am outside and cannot get distracted. While he was speaking, a wave of sword qi shot out from the direction of the heaven trigram. Qin Wushuang met this wave of sword qi with his sword and dissolved it in the air. Boom! The sound of the explosion shook the entire space and emitted a creaking sound. This 8 trigrams formation had 8 cardinal directions. In the shadows of each direction, there seemed to be countless small holes, as if they were launching holes. After the Big Dipper formation was formed, the 7 of them sat cross-legged with rapt attention, each observing the changes in their positions. They all knew that if they could continue to take the lead in this round, they would definitely be able to increase their lead. In this way, if the first stage of the competition was too far ahead, the next stage of the competition would be much easier. Very quickly, 15 minutes had passed. In the first 15 minutes, the attacks of the 8 trigrams formation were not considered fierce. However, the attacks were very sudden. Although they were not concentrated, they had the advantage of being sudden. Qin Wushuang observed for a moment. After all, there was still a pattern to this attack. Within the 8 trigrams, the attacks from the Qian and Dui trigrams carried a strong metal elemental aura. They were decisive, sharp, and penetrative. The Zhen and Sun trigrams, on the other hand, emitted the sound of wind and thunder. Their momentum was domineering and also biting cold. Once they launched an attack, it would be as fast as lightning and abnormally fast. The Li hexagram corresponded to the fire element, while the Can hexagram corresponded to the water element. The Kuan and Zhen trigrams corresponded to the earth elemental aura. Each of them had their own pattern. While Qin Wushuang dealt with the sword qi that kept emerging, he shared his observations with the other disciples. Of course, these disciples had done some research. After all, the Shakyamuni palaces of the 8 Shakyamuni were built according to the 8 trigrams. Thus, they had a lot of knowledge in this area. Since Qin Wushuang had told them about it, of course, these disciples were more prepared. In the blink of an eye, half an hour had passed. In this half hour, the Big Dipper formation operated perfectly and did not encounter any substantial challenges. Qin Wushuang had neutralized half of the attacks from the outside. Under the monstrous defensive power of the formation, the remaining attacks were easily neutralized. However, no one was overly optimistic. Everyone was very clear that the true test was in the second half of the hour. Compared to the calm and collected Stargaze Palace, the Archaic Mysteries sect was more or less in a state of panic. With one less middle-stage warrior, their overall defensive power had been greatly reduced. Although no one had been disqualified in the first half of the competition, they had encountered a few dangerous situations. If it weren't for Luo Guiyun's powerful efforts to turn the tide and save his fellow disciples, most likely someone would have already been disqualified. Although the setup of any of the events in this competition did not appear to be strange, in fact, they all had strong differences. One could not be careless about whether one was strong or weak. In this event, the strong and the weak could be distinguished almost immediately. Luo Guiyun was extremely frustrated. However, he was after all the senior brother of the Archaic Mysteries sect. At the crucial moment, although he was angry, he still needed to shoulder the responsibility of being the leader. He had already received Gao Yu's secret warning to do his best, but not to force it. In this competition, the Archaic Mysteries sect had lost Devil Boy, their secret weapon, and would not achieve a good result. Thus, this time, they must make some strategic concessions. The Archaic Mysteries sect could not afford to lose. Although Luo Guiyun was competitive, he knew how to judge the situation. He knew that with the current situation, it would be useless no matter how hard he worked. Each of the 2 empires had 2 middle-stage warriors. This fatal difference could not be changed. In less than 30 minutes of the second half of the competition, someone from the Archaic Mysteries sect had been disqualified. He had been shot by the formation and had been disqualified. After the first person had been disqualified, in a short 15 minutes, 3 people had been disqualified. On the side of the Dragon and Tiger sect, the situation was much better than the Archaic Mysteries sect. Up to this point, no one had been disqualified. Of course, all of this was thanks to the superpower of the 2 middle-stage warriors. The 2 of them formed a triangle around each other and controlled most of the defensive blind spots. On the other hand, a few initial stage warriors stood out from the rest of the crowd to guard the remaining small gap. Although it was strenuous, at least for now, there were no problems. As long as they could hold on a little longer, they would see the light of victory. Only, since this 8 diagrams formation had been set up, it would not be this simple. It would not allow them to pass through easily. Soon, the frequency of the attacks from the 8 directions had increased significantly. As soon as the frequency had increased, it was no longer a sporadic rain here and there. Instead, it had shot out from 3 or 4 directions at the same time, or even 5 or 6 directions at the same time. Instantly, sword chi rose and fell from the 8 directions, and it was like a meteor shower. Sword chi leaped about and shuttled back and forth within the entire formation, moving horizontally and vertically like dancing silver dragons and rolling golden carps. Various strange lights were mixed together, and it was gorgeous yet carried piercingly cold, killing intent. The 2 strongest people of the Dragon and Tiger sect, one came from the Dragon Gate and the other one came from the Tiger sect. They were called Wei Shunlong and Huang Qinghu. They were both ordinary middle-stage warriors. Wei Shunlong fixed his voice and said, "Junior brothers, the formation has been fully activated. It's the most crucial moment. If we can make it through, we will win." Huang Qinghu also agreed. "That's right. For this round, if we can all pass, for sure we will be the champion. We can make up the 30 points difference with the Stargaze Palace. Everyone, hold on a little longer. The one who laughs in the end will win." For this year, the Dragon and Tiger sect was soaring like a dragon and leaping like a tiger. With 2 exceptional disciples, everyone in the sect felt extremely proud. They were also full of confidence about the future of the 3 empires. They had the confidence to become the leader of the 3 Eastern empires. Thus, they were determined to win this friendly competition. However, before the 2 of them could even finish their words, a painful cry broke the tense atmosphere, causing everyone's nerves to tremble. At the same time, Wei Shunlong and Huang Qinghu felt a chill inwardly. The muscles on their face could not help but tremble. Without a doubt, with this cry, someone had been knocked out. Indeed, from the direction of the Sun trigram, a light flashed and covered one of the Dragon and Tiger disciples. The light flashed again, and the disciple was teleported out of the hall. "It's junior brother Lao." Huang Qinghu gave a low growl and shouted, "Hold on, hold on." However, Wei Shunlong said, "Everyone, don't get distracted. Even if one of us is knocked out, we can still fight for the championship. I don't believe that everyone from the Stargaze Palace can pass. Yes, for this level of difficulty, the Stargaze Palace cannot pass all of them. Everyone, hold on." Huang Qinghu waved the battle blade and shield in his hand and kept jumping. Like a ferocious and hungry tiger, he helped his fellow disciples to share the burden and pressure. It seemed that they had been stimulated by junior brother Lao's elimination. Next, the Dragon and Tiger sect became more courageous as they fought. Each of them seemed to have been injected with chicken blood as they fought fiercely against the attacks from all directions. And the 2 leaders seemed to have gone berserk as they helped their friends solve their problems. Now, the 8 diagrams formation had reached its final stage. It was the stage where the attacks were the densest and the most painful. Among the 3 major formations, only the Stargaze Palace remained unharmed. No one had been knocked out. Roar. Another long roar emerged. Everyone's nerves loosened up as well. There was only one thought in their mind: it's over. The remaining 7 people from the Dragon and Tiger sect felt extremely fortunate as they high-fived each other. 7 of them had successfully made it to the end. They believed that with this result, they could laugh proudly at the 3 Eastern empires. Wei Shunlong and Huang Qinghu's entire body was in tatters. Apparently, they had been swept by the strong wind from the sword chi and clashed with their own spiritual chi. Their clothes had all been torn into tatters. However, when they looked at each other, they did not find it funny. They only felt extremely joyful. Senior Brother Wei, this time we did well, Huang Qinghu said with full confidence. For this round, I don't believe that we cannot suppress the Stargaze Palace. Wei Shunlong also nodded. Okay, let's go out. Chapter 295. Huang Qinghu kept squeezing his hands and his joints emitted clear, pi-pi-pa-pa sounds. His expression was also extremely stern. The result of the Stargaze Palace would determine the final result of the first stage. In the end, whether the Dragon and Tiger sect could reduce that 30 points difference and enter the final stage with an advantage, it would depend on the result of the Stargaze Palace. The door under the Stargaze Palace's tower was also opened. Wei Yi was the first one to walk out. However, his expression was as calm as an ancient well and one could not see any emotions from it. Wei Shunlong could not help but look at this Wei Yi and thought, this Wei Yi is the only one with the natural spiritual roots in the Stargaze Palace. His strength is also above the rest. It's not strange for him to last until the end. Next, Lu Xiaonan and Huang Chaoyang walked out. These two were disciples to the line of the head palace master. They walked out behind Wei Yi. Huang Qinghu clenched his fists and the veins on his forehead stood out. He walked before Wei Shunlong and whispered, Senior Brother Wei, how strong are these two behind Wei Yi? Wei Shunlong shook his head. Inwardly, he already had an ominous feeling. Next, Zhao Muji, Deng Bohu and Miao Zhongxiao walked out. Huang Qinghu growled, how is it possible? 6 of them have come out. The Stargaze Palace still has Qin Wushuang and Zhou Fu. These two are powerful figures and would not have been eliminated. This way. A trace of helplessness appeared on Wei Shunlong's face. For sure, something is wrong with the Stargaze Palace. Before he had finished speaking, Zhou Fu and Qin Wushuang walked out while talking and laughing. Compared to the ragged clothes of the Dragon and Tiger sect, besides Qin Wushuang who had some traces of battle, the other disciples of the Stargaze Palace were in the same state when they had gone in. It was as if they had only gone in for 2 hours and had not gone through the test of the 8 trigrams formation. Huang Qinghu almost suspected that the Stargaze Palace had cheated? Or could it be that the level of their formation was different than theirs? Although the disciples of the Archaic Mysteries sect were surprised, they became even calmer. Although they were depressed, they already knew that the champion of the Tri-Nation friendly competition had already bid farewell to them. It could even be said that the Tianji sect had already locked in the last place in the ranking competition. The 3 leaders walked out together. From their expressions, the results of the exchange competition could be seen. Gao Yu's face had been ashen, with an expression of someone who owed him tens of millions. As for Shi Chenglong, there was a faint smile on his face. There was a trace of solemnity between his brows, and there was a faint trace of worry in the depths of his eyes. Only that Zhuo Buchuan still maintained an indifferent expression. However, the relaxed expression on his face allowed one to see that the results of the Stargaze Palace had greatly reduced the pressure on him. He even appeared somewhat confident. In the first phase there were 2 projects. If the first project lagged behind a little, it didn't matter. They could try to make it even for the second project. However, the second event not only failed to close the gap, but it also widened the gap. This was incredibly disadvantageous to Dragon Tiger sect, who wanted to become the champion. The results of the second event were quickly tabulated. For the Stargaze Palace, all 8 people had made it to the end. Each person had received 10 basic points and a total of 80 points. Plus the 20 points awarded to the champion of this event, they had a total of 100 points. For the Dragon and Tiger sect, 7 people had made it to the end. Each person had received 10 basic points and a total of 70 points. The second place would receive 10 points and 80 points for this event. Without a doubt, the Archaic Mysteries sect was at the bottom. In total, only 4 people had made it to the end and received 40 basic points. Since they were at the bottom of this event, they did not receive any bonus points. Thus, the total score for this event was 40 points. After almost a month of competition, the first phase of the competition had finally finished. The result was unexpected. The Great Luo Empire that had always performed poorly at the Heavenly Lake Empire had performed exceptionally well this time. They had taken the lead and had won 2 consecutive events. Currently, the difference between the results list was apparent. First place, the Stargaze Palace, with a total score of 240 points. Second place, the Dragon and Tiger Sect, with a total score of 190 points. Third place, the Archaic Mysteries Sect, with a total score of 110 points. The difference between first and third place was as high as 130 points. Even if they had performed poorly in the last round, the Stargaze Palace would definitely suppress the Archaic Mysteries Sect. Thus, it was almost certain that after these 2 events, the Archaic Mysteries Sect had locked in the last place. Before the start of the friendly competition between the 3 empires, before Devil Boy's accident, Gao Yu and Bai Gujing were full of confidence. They were prepared to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat and make the other 2 empires lose their temper. Unfortunately, the gods were playing tricks on them. Up to this point, the Archaic Mysteries Sect was the one that did not have any temper. For the Dragon and Tiger Sect, in the second event, the Stargaze Palace had widened the gap of 20 points. The total score difference had reached 50 points. Although this score was not fatal, it was already a huge gap. He had to perform perfectly in the second stage of the competition. Only, for the Dragon and Tiger Sect to perform perfectly, it would depend on the mood of the Stargaze Palace. If the Stargaze Palace performed perfectly, then the Dragon and Tiger Sect would still fail at the last step and would not be able to claim the championship. After the first phase of the event, since someone had gotten injured in the 8 diagrams formation, the second phase of the competition would be held in half a month. By that time, even if there were some internal injuries, they should be completely healed in half a month. And in this half a month, it would allow the 3 empires to think about how to arrange their troop. After all, this martial arts competition was not a competition where they would draw lots to kill each other. Instead, it was a competition with other rules. For the next friendly competition, only the martial arts competition was left. Naturally, Zhuobuchuan would not have to work hard every day. After he had returned to the Pine Crane Inn, Zhuobuchuan gathered all the disciples. "Nice job, boys." That trace of joy from Zhuobuchuan's expression was not as repressed as when he was on the stage. Everyone here were his own people. He did not need to show it to anyone. Tan Zhongqi laughed. "Indeed, it's beautiful. Although Shi Chenglong has not given up, I can say that unless we perform poorly in the martial arts competition, it's the Stargaze Palace's turn to feel proud and elated in this friendly competition." Tian Zhixing was also full of emotions. "Yes, this time we can wash away the humiliating history of us not performing well at the Heavenly Lake Empire." Hearing the words of the seniors, this group of young people also felt their blood boil as their expression became excited. This was the history that they had created and the honor that belonged to them. If they could take home the championship at the Heavenly Lake Empire, for sure, they would become the talk of the entire country. And when they thought about those rich bets, these young people were also boiling with excitement. Only Qin Wushuang and Wei Yi only smiled lightly. To them, after all, they were the leaders of the younger generation of the Stargaze Palace. Of course, they could not be overly enthusiastic and appear immature. Zhuobuchuan said with a smile. "Indeed, the situation is beneficial to the Stargaze Palace. You guys also have the chance to create history for the Stargaze Palace. However, we still cannot be careless in terms of our tactics. In this last round, theoretically, the highest score could be as high as 800 points. Thus, we must not let down our guard." Tan Zhongqi laughed. "Theoretically, the highest score is 800 points. However, in history, almost no one had scored more than 600 points. However, in this last round there are many variables. We must arrange it well. Tian Zhixing said, "That's right." Although the Archaic Mysteries sect is not competitive, we must be on guard against them disrupting the situation and targeting the Stargaze Palace. They would go easy on the Dragon and Tiger sect. After a moment of silence, Zhuobuchuan said, "It's possible for them to go easy on the game. However, if the Archaic Mysteries sect did that, it would be a disgrace to all those people at the Heavenly Lake Empire. Based on the Tianji sect's usual style, they would never do something so shameful for the sake of venting their anger. Besides, even if they were to go easy on us, as long as we get the points we can, we still have a great chance to win the championship. Indeed, the Archaic Mysteries sect is no longer a threat. Now we only need to target the Dragon and Tiger sect, and we will have the confidence to win." Tan Zhongqi nodded. The Dragon and Tiger sect has 2 middle-stage warriors. Now, the problem is, will they strike a balance between offense and defense and play the cards according to the rules? Or will they burn the boats and send the 2 middle-stage warriors to the attacking team? In this martial arts competition, only the attacking team would get points. The defending team would not get any points. However, it did not mean that the defending team would be useless. The defending team would limit the points of the enemy and was equally important. Usually, they would use a balance between offense and defense strategy. However, currently, the Dragon and Tiger sect was 50 points behind the Stargaze Palace in the first round. Perhaps they would use the strategy of seizing points and send their elite warriors to the attacking team. Of course, there would be some problems with such an arrangement. That was, the defending team would get destroyed by the enemy. If they could injure the enemy 1,000 times, they would also injure themselves. They would get the points, but they would also lose the points to the enemy. Thus, in many cases, it would not be a wise choice to favor one side. Tian Zhixing looked at Zhuobuchuan and asked, "Head Palace Master, what should we do?" Zhuobuchuan remained silent as if he was thinking about something. Tan Zhongqi looked around and asked, "If you have any ideas, you can share them with us." Wei Yi said, "Since the Archaic Mysteries sect is no longer a threat, we only need to target the Dragon and Tiger sect. For sure, the current Dragon and Tiger sect is holding their breath. I think that for sure they would burn the boats and send the 2 middle-stage warriors to the attacking team to fight for points." Zhao Muji also said, "Senior Brother Wei's words make sense. They also know that under the situation of having similar strength, they would not be able to suppress the Stargaze Palace." Wu Shuang, what do you say? After the 2 events before this friendly competition, Tan Zhongqi could not help but have a deeper expectation of Qin Wushuang. Now, he could not help but ask when he saw Qin Wushuang remaining silent. And Zhuobuchuan and Tian Zhixing, the 2 palace masters, also looked at Qin Wushuang with encouragement and waited for him to speak. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 296. Qin Wushuang was also considering this problem. Hearing his teacher's question, he said calmly, "Senior brother's speculation is reasonable. I think that since the Dragon and Tiger sect is taking the risk, we should not be restrained by them. We should follow the changes and fight them with offense. We should also arrange the strongest disciples to be on the attacking side. As long as we earn enough points, we will not be afraid even if they get the points from the defending side. Now we are in the lead, why should we take the risk?" Zhuobuchuan asked with interest. Qin Wushuang said, "Because we are in the lead, we cannot be conservative. If we are too conservative, it would be easy to lose the advantage. I think that we should not let the enemy predict our plans. We should focus on ourselves and not let them lead us by the nose." "That's right," Zhuobuchuan said with emotion. "The The Stargaze Palace needs such aggressive spirit. We should not be satisfied. In the Tian Xian land, satisfaction will create a peaceful heart. Once you have a peaceful heart, you will not be far from death. Wu Shuang's suggestion is exactly what I am thinking. I have decided to arrange Wei Yi and Wu Shuang to be on the attacking side. Since we have been in the lead, of course we cannot be conservative in the last round. We should aim to take the lead in this final round. We will make them speechless when they lose. Tan Zhongqi and Tian Zhixing did not expect that the usually gentle and refined head palace master had decided on such a crazy strategy. However, after thinking about it, they also felt it made sense. As long as they could get enough points on the attacking side, they would not be afraid even if the defending side got destroyed. Once the two sides were cancelled out, the advantage from the front would be enough for them to have the last laugh. Wu Shuang, tell me, what deeper reason do you think there is for this arrangement? Zhuo Buchuan asked meaningfully. Qin Wu Shuang said with a smile. I think that since the Dragon and Tiger sect is behind us, they will not have the chance to break through if they don't go all out. For sure, they are holding back their anger and are preparing to unleash it on the Stargaze Palace. In that case, even if senior brother Wei Yi or I went to defend, we could not guarantee that they would not make an opening when facing the crazy attacking side. Thus, for those two middle-stage warriors of the Dragon and Tiger sect, it would not matter even if we let them fight to the end. This score was enough for them to go. Senior brother Wei Yi and I, on the attacking side, will definitely be able to snatch back these lost points. Our main focus is to defend against the other two attackers. Thus, we must also pay attention to the arrangement of the four people defending the ring. After Tan Zhongqi heard his words, he smiled and said, Since you and Wei Yi are going to attack the arena, then the main general guarding the arena will have to be Fu. Her red silk defense is completely capable of taking on this important role. Zhou Fu nodded and said, Eldest martial uncle, master, then I will take the challenge. Deng Bohu also took the initiative to volunteer. Disciples' cultivation is unique and suitable for defending the arena. I am willing to take up this position. Zhuo Buchuan, the head palace master, nodded. Okay, Xiaonan and Chaoyang, you two will assist Zhou Fu and Bo Hu to defend the stage. Wei Yi, Qin Wushuang, Zhao Muji and Miao Zhongxia, the four of you will be the attackers. Zhao Muji was extremely satisfied when he heard that he would be on the attacking side. He nodded with a smile. Okay, if the two middle-stage warriors of the Dragon and Tiger sect are arranged to attack the arena, then I must strive to get more points. Yes, Wei Yi and Wushuang will not be a problem. Muji and Zhongxia, you two must strive to get more points. This way we can ensure that our total score will be stable. Both Zhao Muji and Miao Zhongxia nodded. This way, the Stargaze Palace had drafted the list of names. Attacking side. Number 4 Miao Zhongxia, Number 3 Zhao Muji, Number 2 Qin Wushuang, Number 1 Wei Yi. Defending side. Number 4 Huang Chaoyang, Number 3 Lu Xiaonan, Number 2 Deng Bohu, Number 1 Zhou Fu. The order of this number must be set. It was because the attacking and defending side of the arena would be arranged according to the number. Everyone would be ranked from the lowest to the highest. During the half a month of rest, besides training hard, the Stargaze Palace would exchange battle experiences and encourage each other. Just as Zhuo Buchuan and the other palace masters had expected, the friendly competition between the three empires would be a great stage. It would allow the disciples of the Stargaze Palace to truly unite and form a force. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. Once again, the three major powerhouses gathered before the mountain gate of the Archaic Mysteries sect. The three powerhouses had submitted their names. Once the name list had been submitted, it could not be changed. Until the end of the competition, it must remain the same. No changes would be allowed. Just as the Stargaze Palace had expected, the Dragon and Tiger sect had indeed placed Wei Shunlong and Huang Qinghu in the attacking side. It seemed that the Dragon and Tiger sect had truly planned to burn all bridges to get more points. There was no suspense for the Archaic Mysteries sect. Being the only leader of the Archaic Mysteries sect, of course, Luo Guiyun was placed in the attacking side. Looking at the distribution of the Archaic Mysteries sect's name list, one knew that they did not plan to go all out. Even if they did not fight for the results, they must fight for their face and dignity. Of course, they could not embarrass themselves under the eyes of the public at the pageant hosted by the Heavenly Lake Empire. On the contrary, the Dragon and Tiger sect was secretly surprised by the arrangement of the Stargaze Palace. They had always expected that the Stargaze Palace would use a balanced attack and defense strategy and place the two upper sky warriors in the attacking and defending side. Unexpectedly, the Stargaze Palace's arrangement was also crazy. Inwardly, Shi Chenglong was shocked and could not help but look at Zhuobuchuan a few more times. He realized that he did not know this Zhuobuchuan well enough. You too, this competition will be divided into 2 cycles. Same as before, draw lot. Yes, let's do it the same way. Soon, the result of the draw came out. In the first cycle, the Dragon and Tiger sect would attack, and the Archaic would defend. The Archaic would attack, and the Stargaze would defend. The result of the first cycle came out. Naturally, the arrangement for the second cycle had come out. The Dragon and Tiger sect would attack, and the Stargaze would defend. The Archaic would attack, and the Dragon and Tiger sect would defend. To put it bluntly, each powerhouse's attacking team would challenge the defending team of the 2 opponents once and fight twice. And the defending team would face 2 different attacking opponents. Each of them would defend once. To put it precisely, it would be a cycle of 2 battles. Each cycle would have 3 groups of battles. Thus, 3 martial arts arenas were needed. In the first cycle, the attacking team of the Stargaze would face the defending team of the Dragon and Tiger sect. Thus, the result of this first battle was extremely important. Zhao Muji said in a low voice, "The 2 middle stage warriors of the Stargaze have gone to their attacking team. This time, we must get more points. Junior brother Miao, you are the first one to challenge. You must get a good start." According to the rules, the number 4 of the attacking team would challenge the number 4 of the opposing team first. This kind of ranking was usually based on the strength of one's strength. Miao Zhongxia nodded inwardly. "Don't worry, I will do my best." Inwardly, he set a goal for himself. At least, he must succeed in 2 rounds. According to the rules, if he succeeded in a one-on-one challenge, he would get 10 points. Then, if he succeeded in a one-on-2 challenge, he would get another 20 points. In other words, he would get 30 points in the first cycle. Thus, in each cycle, theoretically, the highest score for one person would be to succeed in challenging 4 people. In total, it would be 100 points. Theoretically, with 4 people, the highest score for a cycle would be 400 points. After 2 cycles, theoretically, one could get 800 points. Of course, this was only the highest score in theory. In fact, it was impossible for any powerhouse to get a perfect score. At least, it had never happened in history. After Miao Zhongxia went up the stage, number 4 of the defending team of the Dragon and Tiger sect also went up. On the side of the Dragon and Tiger sect, the 2 strongest warriors had gone to the attacking team. This way, the defending team would inevitably become weak. The Dragon and Tiger sect's requirement for the defending team was that they must use all their strength to restrain the enemy and prevent them from getting too many points. However, after all, the opponent of this number 4 was much weaker than Miao Zhongxia. Regardless of how hard he fought, in the end, he was not as strong as Miao Zhongxia, who was ranked in the top 6 in the Stargaze Palace. After a moment of stalemate, he was defeated by Miao Zhongxia. In a one-on-one battle, the attacker won and Miao Zhongxia got 10 points. Next, it was Miao Zhongxia's turn to challenge 1-on-2. From the defending team, number 4 still went up the stage. However, there was an extra number 3. Since Miao Zhongxia had defeated number 4, he wanted to use the same trick to attack number 4. Unexpectedly, number 3's combat power was much stronger than number 4. Regardless of how Miao Zhongxia targeted number 4, he could not get rid of number 3. In the end, he could not break through his opponent's defense within the allotted 2 hours. He had failed in a 1-on-2 battle. This way, Miao Zhongxia only got 10 points in this cycle. Next, it was Zhao Muji's turn. Miao Zhongxia went down the stage with frustration and said to Zhao Muji, "Senior brother Zhao, that number 3's spear technique is strange. If you want to deal with him, you must be aware of his spear technique." Zhao Muji said with a smile, "Okay." Zhao Muji was number 3 on the attacking team. His first opponent was number 3 on the defending team of the opposing team. This way it was to be fair. However, Zhao Muji was different than Miao Zhongxia. As soon as he went up the stage, he shot out a pair of magistrate brushes like a machine gun. Like a violent storm, he did not give his opponent any chance to breathe. In less than 15 minutes, that person got hit by Zhao Muji and fell down the stage. In a spurt of energy, Zhao Muji challenged 2 opponents one-on-one. Like Miao Zhongxia, they were number 3 and number 4. Number 3 was injured at the moment. Naturally, he could not fight as freely as he did against Miao Zhongxia. In less than an hour, he was swept down the stage by Zhao Muji again. Zhao Muji's awe-inspiring aura spread far and wide as he continued to challenge. He fought 1 against 3, specifically targeting number 3. In addition, Zhao Muji's movement technique was very special. It was fast and accurate. Although he was fighting 1 against 3, he still managed to sneak up on them at the last stage. However, in the 4th round, Zhao Muji was not as lucky as he was when he fought 1 against 4. The number 1 on the defending team of the Dragon and Tiger sect was enough to restrain Zhao Muji in terms of speed and defense. Halfway through the battle, Zhao Muji knew that he had no hope of winning this time. 2 hours were up. Zhao Muji had no choice but to go down the stage. He had failed the challenge. However, the first 3 rounds were worth 10 points, 20 points, and 30 points. In the first cycle, Zhao Muji managed to get 60 points. When Miao Zhongxia was at a disadvantage in the first battle, he managed to salvage the situation. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 297. On the 3rd day of the first cycle, Qin Wushuang went up the stage. Qin Wushuang had already held his breath. Although there was rest between the days of the competition, the defending side had more or less suffered injuries. Their injuries would not have healed that quickly. Of course, to Qin Wushuang, this was not important. This time, he did not have any concerns. He only had one goal, and that was to sweep away the opponents like a whirlwind. Since there were no middle-stage warriors among the opponents, Qin Wushuang had no reason to not sweep them to the end. Even if he failed in the last round, it would be a humiliation to him. Of course, the battle had gone as Qin Wushuang had expected. In the first 3 rounds, Qin Wushuang had won like a whirlwind. When it came to the 4th round, those 4 people did not have much confidence when facing an elite warrior like Qin Wushuang. At this time, bravery were not enough. Qin Wushuang did not use too many methods. He only used a snake-shaped soft whip and played around with those 4 people. In the end, Qin Wushuang had swept them to the end without any suspense. He had succeeded in 4 consecutive rounds and had obtained full marks for the first cycle, which was 100 points. When Zhao Muji saw Qin Wushuang's free and easy manner on the stage, he had to admit that indeed, this junior brother Qin was the son of the gods. He could not help but feel impressed. Wei Yi was also intoxicated as he watched. He gave a long sigh. In the past, I only knew that junior brother Qin had astonishing defensive power. Today, I see that his attack power is also tyrannical. If I remember correctly, this soft whip should only be one of his many methods. Zhao Muji smiled bitterly. The soft whip and the treasured sword are all okay. I admire his middle finger sword the most. It's too fast and impossible to defend against. Naturally, Wei Yi had also suffered from the coagulated sword. Thus he had the same feeling. I don't know where junior brother Qin learned this method. Indeed, it's like a ghost. While they were talking, Qin Wushuang had already walked down from the stage. His steps were light as he high-fived his friends. Good job, junior brother Qin. This perfect score is too refreshing. Zhao Muji said with a smile. Qin Wushuang laughed and said, in 2 days, Wei Shixiang will also be able to get a perfect score. Zhao Shixiang still needs to focus. Zhao Muji laughed heartily. That's right, with senior martial brother Wei taking action, it will be like a hot knife through butter. We have 2 full marks in the first round, so there's no way we'll lose to Dragon Tiger Sect. Wei Yi said, I wonder how junior martial sister Zhou and the others are doing? In the first 2 days of the competition, the defending team of the Stargaze Palace had some wins and losses. Overall, their results were not bad. However, because it was challenged by the Archaic Arcanum sect, it did not have much value as a reference. Their current competitor was the Dragon and Tiger sect, not the Tianji sect. Arriving at another arena, today was the Tianji sect's second challenger. This person actually managed to pass 3 rounds consecutively, entering the 1v4 round. However, Zhou Fu's strength was not something the other disciples could compare to. Like a dancing scarlet dragon, her red silk wrapped around that number 2 challenger and made him unable to fight back. Not to mention attacking the others, he even struggled to protect himself. Zhao Muji could not help but laugh. Everyone, why does it look like senior martial sister Zhou is attacking and the other party is defending? Indeed, the situation was somewhat strange as Zhao Muji had said. Qin Wushuang gave a long sigh. Senior martial sister Zhou is giving the defending team a good peek. In fact, using offense as defense is much more practical than normal defense. Using offense as defense. Wei Yi nodded. Junior martial brother Qin, your words make sense. In the end, under Zhou Fu's powerful attacks, that person managed to hold on for 2 hours. At this point, the 3 competition days had ended. For the attacking team of the Dragon and Tiger sect, today, number 2 Huang Qinghu was the main attacker. Along the way, he had also defeated the Archaic Arcanum sect's defense and obtained a perfect score. On the 4th day of the competition, Wei Yi stepped out. After watching the competition for 3 days, Wei Yi already knew the characteristics of the 4 defending team of the Dragon and Tiger sect like the back of his hand. Indeed, he had a card up his sleeve. His problem was not whether he could get a perfect score, but how long it would take him to get it. Initially, the defending team of the Dragon and Tiger sect was not as strong as Wei Yi. After being observed by Wei Yi for such a long time, how could they block Wei Yi's attacks? In 4 consecutive rounds, Wei Yi did not give them any room for imagination. He easily pulled out each carrot and hole and obtained a perfect score. This way, the results of the first round for the attacking team of the Stargaze came out. Miao Zhongxia had 10 points, Zhao Muji had 60 points, and Wu Shuang and Wei Yi had 100 points each. In total, they had 270 points. And the defending team of the Stargaze Palace was facing Luo Guiyun, the strongest person of the Archaic Arcanum sect. For this round, the defending team of the Stargaze Palace followed their original plan and gave up strategically to prevent the Archaic Arcanum sect from taking revenge. This way, after 4 rounds, the Archaic Arcanum sect had obtained a perfect score, 60 points, 30 points, and 10 points. In total, they had 200 points. And when the attacking team of the Dragon and Tiger sect faced the defending team of the Archaic Arcanum sect, they also gained endless points. 2 had gotten perfect scores, 1 had 60 points, and 1 had 30 points. The total score for this round was 290 points. In other words, after this round, the Dragon and Tiger sect had gained 20 points more than the Stargaze Palace. Initially, in the first round of the competition, the two sides had a 50-point difference. In this round, they had gained back 20 points. Now, the difference had become 30 points. Naturally, this result made the entire Dragon and Tiger sect feel excited. With another round of competition and a 30-point difference, anything was possible. After the first round ended, they would rest for half a month as usual. Now it was already September. Inside the Pine Crane Inn, Zhuobuchuan said with a solemn expression, "Indeed, the attacking team of the Dragon and Tiger sect has good strength. Zhou Fu, in the next round, you will be tested by the attacking team of the Dragon and Tiger sect. For sure, you will not be able to defeat Wei Shenglong and Huang Qinghu. Don't worry about these two. Most importantly, you must stop number 3 and 4 from the attacking team of the Dragon and Tiger sect. Regardless, you must not let them gain too many points." Zhou Fu and the other 3 all knew the heavy responsibility on their shoulders. Instantly, they nodded and said, "Senior uncle, in this half-month, we will work harder and try to make number 3 and 4 suffer more." Zhuobuchuan nodded and comforted them. "Of course, don't feel depressed because they have gained back 20 points. In the first round, the Dragon and Tiger sect was able to gain so many points because their opponent was the Archaic Arcanum sect. This time, the defending team of the Archaic Arcanum sect was relatively weak. They were more or less holding back. However, in the next round, our attacking team will face the defending team of the Archaic Arcanum sect. It's time for us to gain points." The defending team of the Archaic Arcanum sect was not as strong as the Dragon and Tiger sect. Of course, it was the best chance for the Stargaze Palace to gain points. Zhao Muji rubbed his palms together. Last time, he had felt depressed when he did not get a perfect score. This time, he decided that regardless, he must get a perfect score. Last time, Miao Zhongxia had only gotten 10 points. Because of his shortfall, the Stargaze Palace had lost 20 points to the Dragon and Tiger sect. If he could succeed in a 1 versus 2 challenge, wouldn't they have tied with the Dragon and Tiger sect in the first round? Thus, he secretly vowed that he must get more points in the second round. At least, he must succeed in 2 rounds and get 30 points. Only then, he would not drag them down. Miao Zhongxia was the head disciple of the 5th Palace Master, Tian Zhixing. Naturally, Tian Zhixing was also somewhat anxious when he saw that Miao Zhongxia did not perform well. In half a month, he gave Miao Zhongxia special treatment. Qin Wushuang and Wei Yi were the most relaxed. Their value had been maximized. Since they had gotten a perfect score in the first round, they would not have any surprises in the second round. Zhao Muji also worked hard and studied the characteristics of the 4 defending team of the Archaic Arcanum sect. He also wanted to get a perfect score in the second round. In that case, he could ensure that the Stargaze Palace would take first place. Whether the Stargaze Palace could suppress the Dragon and Tiger sect, whether Zhao Muji could get a perfect score would be crucial. After all, both the Dragon and Tiger sect had 2 devilish elite warriors that had gotten perfect scores. When the two sides cancelled each other out, it would be a competition between number 3 and number 4. Zhao Muji understood this principle deeply and would not let down his guard. Another half a month of rest had passed quickly. Once again, the second round of martial arts competition had begun. This battle would determine the final winner. It would determine who would get the 12 pieces of the bet and the spot to explore the endless Eastern Sea in 3 years. Receiving the encouragement from the first round, the disciples of the Dragon and Tiger sect were all extremely excited. Each of them rubbed their fists and prepared to welcome this last round of battle. Next, the attacking team of the Dragon and Tiger sect would face the defending team of the Stargaze Palace directly. Indeed, it was a narrow path. The battle between these two would determine the final trend of this competition. Of course, the performance of the attacking team of the Stargaze Palace would also play a decisive role. In comparison, the attacking team of the Archaic Mysteries sect would appear to be of little value when facing the defending team of the Dragon and Tiger sect. Thus, the battle between them would not determine the outcome of the battle. Although the Archaic Mysteries sect had achieved great results, they were too far behind and had no power to turn the situation around. They had almost announced that they were at the bottom of the ranking. In this round, regardless of the attacking team or the defending team, their performance would directly determine the result of the Stargaze Palace. The pressure existed on the shoulders of each of the 8 participating disciples of the Stargaze Palace. The battle had already begun. Currently, Miao Zhongxia had already defeated his first opponent. In this battle, he was fighting against 2 opponents at the same time. Although the success or failure of this battle would only be 20 points, most likely, it would determine the final trend of the battle. Thus, Miao Zhongxia was serious and focused. He remembered the teachings of the 3 palace masters to not advance recklessly and to not be greedy for achievements. 2 hours was a long time, and there would be many opportunities. Apparently, the Archaic Mysteries sect had a much stronger resistance when facing the Stargaze Palace. Without any mobilization, each of them seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. The pressure Miao Zhongxia was facing was completely different than the pressure the Dragon and Tiger sect faced when they challenged the defending team of the Archaic Mysteries sect. Qin Wushuang had a strong mentality. However, he could not help but feel somewhat eager. Although Miao Zhongxia's battle was only worth 20 points, it was extremely important. If he could take it down, Zhao Muji would only need to perform normally and he should be the champion of this friendly competition. On the contrary, if he did not perform well in this battle and put too much pressure on Zhao Muji, the result of this friendly competition would be full of suspense. P.S. With the winter snow swirling in the air, the weather is getting colder. Firstly, it's for the convenience of reading for the vast number of warriors in the galaxy, and secondly, I have decided to adjust the update time. I will try to update 1 or 2 chapters during the day and try to finish all the update tasks between 2100 hours. I welcome everyone's supervision, haha. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.